Hello and welcome to the Nash Tackle Off the Hook podcast. Just to make you aware, this podcast may contain some explicit/offensive language, and if that's not your thing, you don't have to listen, but I have given you a warning. I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
You don't know the half of it, but anyway, I'm skating on the thinnest ice known to man. Like
he said, and they put a poison in the tank that just instantly kills them. He went, and we've run out of it, so we cut their heads off with shovels.
Suddenly, bang! The whole boat exploded.
Take your sort of 8-inch long piranha and imagine that at 4, 5, maybe 6 feet.
I said, I've revived your dead fish. F off, he said. You haven't.
That was just humongous. It was. I couldn't believe what I was looking at.
I'm just battling this fish out, and I know it's a black man. I'm saying I'll never be a naughty boy again.
If you catch fish and you return them to the water, then you are my brother.
Marc Voosen, welcome to the Nash Off the Hook podcast, mate. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
You are officially, Julian Cunliffe officially has the title of sexiest man in carp fishing. You've won it, mate. We had a talk about this in the office with the lads. You've done it. Better hair than me, better dressed, chiseled. I feel like sort of a, complete sloppy second over here, mate. So it's lovely to have you in.
Thank you.
Good hair, innit? You've had a haircut recently as well, haven't you, for this?
Yesterday.
I should have gone.
I had to live up to the expectations.
Mate, you've definitely won that. You have flown over this morning, haven't you? You've just arrived.
Yeah, basically a minute ago, yeah.
And everything's frozen. Is it frozen in Germany when you left?
It's a tad warmer, but in general, except from today, we have the exact same weather. So single digits, but not freezing at night.
No.
But it was a beautiful drive. I mean, Alan Blair picked me up from the airport. That's something for itself.
That's a taxi driver and a half, isn't it?
And then completely frozen over country is winter wonderland.
Winter wonderland, indeed. What have you been up to? You been fishing, or have you just had a nice little Christmas layoff?
I got a spot going. I think it's more a mission to feed the carp than to fish, actually. But it produces. Whenever I went, I caught.
Nice.
It's just I really don't like it that much to fish in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And it's like every other week I go for a night, but I keep catching like 2-3 fish a night. It just seems to be a case of if you keep the bait going in, they come to visit the spot. Obviously, it's a lake with a nice stock. I'm choosing my winter battles wisely now.
I like that, yeah. But you like a bit of predator fishing as well. We were just talking about it off camera, weren't you?
I love it, actually, yeah. Always did. And this winter sees me more perch fishing than pike fishing. Yeah. Usually I'm on a mission for, we call them big mothers.
Big mamas.
Yeah. And every winter I got to get myself one. Doesn't always happen, but I catch my fair share. And by now I also have a couple of tickets for lakes solely for the winter predator fishing.
Yeah.
No, nothing interesting there in regards to carp.
But just for the predators. You said it's become carpy, if you like, hasn't it?
The predator angling in Germany, Europe especially, is much bigger than over here. But now for the last couple of years, the carp anglers basically rediscovered predator angling in the winter months for them.
Yeah.
And you see more and more guys getting on it. It isn't, to me at least, it is a nicer thing to do. I did my fair share of winter fishing, getting frozen over in the lakes and all that, and it's all right. But to go out just a couple of hours with a friend, for example, having a nice curry afterwards, and then go home and spend the evening on the couch. The older I get,
more comfortable,
the more appealing it looks to me. Yeah.
Well, mate, it definitely is appealing. I like a bit of predator fishing, but we're talking about in terms of carpiness and podcasts that you've done before. You've done one before in series 1 with us, haven't you? With Dan and Al
in Kev's office.
In Kev's office.
Look
how far it's come. We're now next to Kev's office.
We're petting on a while.
Yeah, that's just it's like a safe room, mate. That's all it is. Nothing to do with sound. You're back for podcast 2. We're going to look into lots of different themes, everything from your involvement with Nash through to a lot with regards to your fishing. And where I wanted to start, because we chatted about this on the phone earlier the week, was Germany, your fishing, being in Cologne where you're centred. the fishing or the carp fishing that you know over there, we're talking about how it got to be popularised and whatever it is now, and obviously how the UK scene sort of influenced that to some extent. So briefly, because I was pretty fascinated, could you talk us through like how it might not be definitive, but how carp fishing basically came to Germany?
I did a phone call because I knew we would probably be talking about this, because there is, I think 2 years ago, there was a book being released to the German market called, translated, Time Travel, which basically goes back to the early beginnings of carp fishing in Germany. So I called the guy who published it to get some more info. So I hope I have my facts right.
He's going to kill you if it's wrong, mate, isn't he?
No, the great thing is 99% of the listeners can't prove me wrong, so I can just...
Anything. Absolutely anything.
I waffle away and you have to believe whatever I'm saying. I think it is, to at least a couple of people, it is common knowledge how carp fishing spread in Europe. Because obviously there's always been travel, right? And so even back in the days, people learned how to carp fish from the UK scene, back when it was paste and freelining and stuff like that. But as far as I know, there were guys, Germans and mostly Dutch guys, working on the oil rigs in the North Sea alongside Englishmen. And yeah, I mean, you know how it is. You're killing the beers in the evening, and then it's like, what are you up to? Yeah, fishing? Yeah, me too. And then basically, to cut a long story short, because I don't know too much, I don't have the names, etc.
Yeah.
But somebody showed a herring to a German guy and to the Dutch guys, and then quite quickly, I mean, the Netherlands are really small compared to Germany. Like it is, I don't know the comparison, but it's ridiculously small in comparison. So it spread much faster in a smaller country, being the Netherlands. The scene is much more intimate and words get around much more. But also in the north of Germany, funny enough. And the north of Germany is a bit like the north of England. So it is not the best for carp fishing.
Right. Climate-wise, the same as well? Colder?
Colder, yeah.
Yeah.
Colder.
Okay.
And also different kinds of waters. It is more shallower, which sounds great, but not that rich in naturals and stuff like that. At least back in the days, it wasn't. So people were fishing for doubles, if anything.
Yeah.
But still, the way of carp fishing, that basically sleeping for fish
camping,
was quite appealing, as it was in every country. Once it spread, people were, I can actually sleep and catch some fish. Awesome. And yeah, the selectiveness of it, and because as you know, in the beginning everyone fished with floats, or that's how, at least back in the days, everyone considered what fishing is.
Yeah.
It is float fishing, or just chugging a method feeder out or something like that. And then you catch bream, other fish, and at times you would catch one of those really strong giant carp, right? There were, and people would lose more than they would catch. And as soon as these modern methods spread, there was no holding back, and it spread all over the country. And
you talked about the waters, and you talked about sort of the inherent like nature of them, and you said that they're were very different in the north. They were shallower. Generally, those waters, how did the carp come to be in there? How have they then become in numbers, if you like, or grown in numbers over the years to popularise a carp scene over there?
So first of all, carp have been around mostly all of Europe.
Yeah.
From the Dark Ages, so to speak. So monks spread them.
Yeah.
Right? The Catholic monks, when I'm missing the words here, sorry, but they have this period leading up to Easter when they're not allowed to eat meat.
Right, I'm not very good on religion here, mate. You're testing my already.
But at least it is. I'm Catholic, and I know how the words in Germany, but we were never practicing
Yeah.
Religion. I was
You're
just
safe here, mate. It's
born,
all right.
I was born into it. It's not my fault. But yeah, there's a period where people fast, kind of.
Yeah.
So you're not supposed to drink, not supposed to eat meat, to have some kind of
Yeah, a bit like Lent and having some empathy for
yes, and then you love it again when you do it, basically.
Yeah.
And I think it's between Christmas and Easter. But fish wasn't considered meat.
Yeah.
And that was basically the cheating for the monks. Beer also wasn't considered alcohol.
Oh, that's a good
so
edge, isn't it?
that's why brewery, beer, and carp were spread wherever Catholics went, which at some point was kind of the world, right? Up to the Middle East, Jerusalem, and blah, blah, blah.
Everywhere,
it's carp everywhere. Yeah.
So how did they get from that, which is pretty similar story to us, obviously monks came over, they had stock ponds, some escaped into natural waters. How did you get from that point with the monk sort of general stock to these lakes and then being populated by other carp?
So most lakes, at least in my area, they go back to one of the darker chapters in German history, which is Second World War.
Yeah.
So when Mr. Hitler, decided that we need to move our war gear or tanks around quickly, he built the German Autobahn, and he basically was the inventor. Not him, but his regime. Yeah, of course. The inventor of the modern highway system, so to speak. Right? And so they built all these highways all across Europe to move their stuff around. And a lot of lakes were dug because of that. And also they dug up a lot of brown coal and other kinds of coal. And this is where most lakes in my area stem from. So they are all like... Most of them, at least, are roughly between 50 to 80 years old, but not older, because somewhere between somewhere in the middle region between First and Second World War, and then till after the Second World War, because economy afterwards was still striving because we had to rebuild everything. Then all these lakes were dug, and still, when you look back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, till the 70s, a carp was still considered probably the best fish to eat. Or the ratio of weight to what you can eat from it, la-di-da, was considered just the most efficient fish. So they were, again, stocked everywhere. Because people went to go out to catch a fish, kill a fish, and eat it on a Sunday, because Sunday for the Catholics is still like the fish day, where you're supposed to only eat fish. And then when a lot of these fishing clubs then took over these new founded lakes, they did what we call like a mixed stocking. Yeah. It's basically, I went to the breeder and said, just fill it in, mate.
Well, with whatever, multi-species,
whatever, just to get life into it.
Okay.
And they were chucking also mussels in there, crayfish in there, everything to get like all these lakes up and running as fast as possible, because there were many people after the war, obviously, who hadn't much, and to catch a fish and eat it was considered absolutely standard. And obviously that dwindled away over the years. Germans got rich again, so to speak, and catching your own food, there seems to be something with it. The richer a country get, it's kind of frowned upon, right? Yeah. You don't go in the forest to collect berries or mushrooms. It's an odd thing to do, kind of. People don't do it anymore. And what you see, people who go into the German forest to collect those expensive mushrooms, for example, they are sold for a lot of money in stores. They're everywhere, but no one cares to pick them up, or berries in the autumn, etc. It's all immigrants who do it. Right. Because they still have that mentality. Mate, it's free food. Right? Yeah, definitely. So they put them in jars and they store it. And that got lost in German society kind of in the 60s and 70s, when all of a sudden it was more posh to go to a shop than getting your hands dirty. That's at least... just my perception, because you see it in every society. Kind of.
Definitely.
These ways get lost to live off your own land and all that, and so there might still be the odd person who, for example, kills a zander, because zander is considered to be the highest grade sweetwater fish in our region. Yeah, and perch. Also, perch is sold for ridiculous amounts in restaurants.
Oh, give me an idea. What's a perch go?
I think a pound of perch meat is €50 or so.
What?
Yep, it is like fillet steak.
That's mad.
Because you can't breed them on a.
Oh, you can't artificially sort of breed them for the table.
Right. So it's always wild caught. So it means like they grew in nature and somebody has to catch it. There's labor going into that. And there's also, we have these enormous lakes in the south of Germany.
Right.
The Bodensee, it's the biggest lake in Europe, for example. It's cornering 3 countries. It's Switzerland, Austria, and Germany are all basically cornering that lake. And there you still have professional fishery. Like guys go out in boats with nets.
So
and catch fish. But they also have to reinvest some amount of money into restocking it every year. So you have something sustainable, kind of. And that fish, that zander and perch, gets sold in shops for ridiculous money because it grows in like the clearest of water and it's organic. And it is, I mean, how much meat do you get out of a perch? It's not much.
I don't know.
Not much, though.
Not much, no.
Yeah. A carp, on the other hand,
you get imagine
£20. I can feed a family of 10 or so for a weekend. But also, it seems to be the case, carp isn't that tasty.
I can't say I've ever eaten a carp, mate.
I have when I was a really small child. I can't remember it.
Yeah.
It's just, if something is good, it's still eaten. It was where all this carp eating and spreading came from was just that grow ratio that they have.
Yeah.
Where after 3 years you have a
substantial fish.
Decent amount to eat on. And I mean the same way pigs and cattle was spread, right? It's just like we still don't grow deer or rabbits. I mean some people do, but not on a large scale, right? It's not like you drive past a field full of rabbits or something like that. It's mostly cattle. Right?
So from that point, you said something interesting to me before about the lakes and the nature of them. You said there that pretty similar to a lot of our modern day sort of gravel pits. They were dug for gravel for the Autobahn, but for us, for the M1 and various of the motorways. Filled in, carp are in there for the table, primarily in Germany. Initially, and then obviously people start communicating through the English scene and the oil rigs, and that then gets taken over to Germany and to the Netherlands as well. The lakes themselves, I mean, they're relatively sort of young. You said that there was a change in regards to the lakes that really boosted the sort of growth rates of those carp.
Yeah, I can remember that. I was lucky enough kind of to fall into that exact age group where I experienced it.
Yeah.
Because when I was little, say I started carp fishing when I was 14, 39 now. So do the math for yourself. But yeah, quite a long time now that I fish for carp. But back in the days, the gravel pits weren't the lakes to look for when you were looking for a big carp because they were barren. It was just still gravel pits with water in it. The best thing you could find, and with 14 we didn't really understand that or look for it, was softer areas, which were usually the deeper areas where the sediment settled for years and decades. Right? And then the hard areas, the plateaus, the shelves, etc. And you would get like a nice dock. And already I remember we were looking for that, but just because when it felt soft, it was usually really deep. And we didn't really understand it, but to our understanding, carp weren't living in the deep. Looking back, we made it really simple. But the big fish, and that was before my time, German carp fishing, just to touch back up on this real quick, German carp fishing started in the rivers, not in the lakes.
The rivers?
Yes, because these rivers held much more natural food.
Yeah.
And so the first 25 kilo fish in Germany was caught from a river.
What year roughly is that? Do you know?
90.
In the 90s.
I should have brought the book really, because but then I would sit here just read from it, I guess.
Yeah.
But like 1990, something like that. I remember seeing that in a fishing newspaper, which is a story in itself. But there was a small tackle shop in my town back then, and it was actually a lady running it. And God bless her soul, what she did is they received these newspapers, and back in the days, they received a certain amount, and the ones that they didn't sell, they would just have to cut out like a piece in the front where it states the price and stuff. You have that on magazines too. And it's always on the cover of a magazine.
Yeah, right.
They had to cut out all these, put them in an envelope, send it back to the
printer.
The printer or the publisher.
Yeah.
And they would get like a refund. They would only have to pay for the ones that they sold. That was the idea. And the rest they would bin it, but they would have to send in these things to not having to pay for these. So what she did, whenever there was a weekly fishing newspaper in Germany, printed on like real newspaper paper. Yeah. And what she did, whenever one issue expired, she would do the cutouts, and to the kids, she would hand out last week's.
Oh, what a lady.
And till this day, like a lot of my fishing, or she had such a massive impact into everything I am today, because I was soaking up this newspaper every week and doing and a lot of it was pure nonsense looking back.
What sort of stuff? Like tactical stuff?
I remember there was like a secret tactic of perch fishing, and I never caught a big perch, so I was so keen. All right, you would take a syringe and put air in the end of a worm. So it would pop up and then wiggle, and that would catch you the big perch. To be honest, it still sounds like an awesome idea.
Yeah, that would catch you a perch.
I did it though. I feel really bad putting air into the poor worm. B, the only thing I ever caught was an enormous eel.
Oh.
Until this day, because of that incident, I'm terrified of eel.
You're terrified of eel?
Yeah, my worst nightmare is if you would say, Mark, let's go conger fishing. That would basically, I would crawl up to a ball and shiver for the whole day.
Why? Did it not go well?
It go around my arm and squeeze me, and I was slimy from head to toe. I chopped its head off.
Oh, you beauty!
Just to make it die. And it was wiggling in the bag for 2 more hours. And that was nightmare fuel for me. It was like...
At one point in this story, it was me or the eel.
Yeah, it was a really close thing, and I brought it home to my dad, really proud. And it was, wow, that's a meter eel. That's been it.
Was it a meter long?
Yeah. It was. It was a really big eel, and a meter in Germany for an eel is considered like proper.
I don't think I've ever seen a freshwater eel a meter
I could have
long.
probably sent that to the newspaper. I would have appeared in it. But my dad would, because he loved eel, like smoked eel.
Yeah.
He would buy that in shops at days and eat it. And I thought, like, if I bring in an eel, like, he will absolutely go mad. I was like, yeah, lovely, let's spin it.
Cheers, Dad.
Which goes back to what we talked about before. People want to buy that stuff in shops, not catch them themselves or smoke it themselves. Of course, there's always the odd individual who does.
Yeah, but it's an exception rather than the rule. Yeah,
people can't be bothered, and it was from a dirty river, and then my dad didn't want to eat that eel.
But it's funny that the rivers were the scene. I think, like,
they
as you say,
they were so dirty back then.
Yeah,
that so polluted, but with a lot of that fertilizers from the fields and from the fabrics leading up to it, that fish just grew to immense sizes in it. You could go in with a net and you had fish in it, like silverfish. It was so full of livestock. The same rivers today, if you ask environmentalists?
Environmentalists, good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't make me say that again. They are so happy and so proud of them because the water is so clean. You can basically drink it, right? And there's no fish in it anymore.
No. Why is that?
I mean, I guess that's how they should be. But back in the day, you had like foam on the water. Like, it was really dirty, but it was bursting with life.
So everything's basically gone from rivers to these lakes, but these lakes have changed to sort of...
Exactly. At a certain point, people figured out, we now, because river fishing is hard. Right? I mean, I don't like it because it's so hard. You have to redo your rods all the time. You have to deal with the constant changes in water levels and all that stuff. So people, in the beginning, German carp fishing was river fishing. Everyone only fished the rivers. And then they figured out, there's smaller carp in the lakes, but they're much easier to catch. So basically, if you want some time off from the ridiculously hard river fishing, you would go to the lakes. And obviously, there's also people getting attracted by that, and they just stay. They don't mind so much about the fish size. They stay on the lakes. Mm. And then more food got introduced into these lakes, and the carp caught up quite well. I mean, we're still talking years, but looking back, it was quite a short period until the first 15, 20 kilo fish were caught from lakes in Germany. And this is roughly when my carp fishing career started. So there was already like 10 years of it beforehand. But just to give you a perspective, when I started, there was no German carp fishing shows. There was nothing.
Yeah.
In shops, there was maybe a meter of carp fishing tackle. Right? So, and when the first show that I visited, we had to drive to Belgium. Back in the day, I think there were in Genk in Belgium were these carp shows. And you would see the Andy Littles, probably Kev.
Yeah.
And these guys were there live. And to me, that was like,
wow.
Sports stars.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God. So, yeah, that was where my career started. So everything was well established to a degree.
Yeah.
But looking back, absolutely baby shoes from where it's at now. And like I said, when I started, gravel pits were runs waters because they had lots of fish in them. These carp were small and always hungry because there was not much for them to feed on because these gravel pits weren't mature. And not enough people putting in bait for them to already grow to a certain size. And so I fished my biggest fish all came from like park lakes and stuff.
Okay.
Because they, obviously being shallower and the birds being fed with bread. So these carp, 15 kilo back then was like the holy grail for us to chase. And we would go to these gravel pits just to see something different and also to get mad runs. Like 10 runs a day was easy. Just put in something to eat and they would be on it. And you would catch like doubles and up to maybe 10 kilo. That would be like the biggest fish in the lake.
Commons, mirrors, mix?
Mixed.
Okay.
It's always been a mixed bag in Germany.
Yeah.
Also, depending where the club buys from, the breeder.
Yeah.
But usually it was always like a mixed stock, a bit more more mirror heavy, but usually a really mixed stock. And but then, and really all of a sudden, because all these lakes were dug roughly during the same time period, it was like a switch. And what I think happened is they all matured to a degree where enough sediment and just biomass had assembled on the bottom of these lakes. And then all of a sudden they all exploded in weed.
Yeah.
So the weed just came from nowhere. Within a year or two, they were choking with weed at times. And what followed is, till this day, you can ask every older angler, they will all complain, somewhere in the late 90s, we stopped catching fish. Because these fish were now in an abundance of naturals and food. So the people who fished like in the 40s, which still a lot of them did, really simplistic, rough, not good in the end, looking back, they really struggled then. Because they never knew weed, how to deal with weed, finding clear spots. It's all like, can't be bothered. But just, chugging in some maggots and a big lead all of a sudden wouldn't work anymore. And then you would have, that's where some people then make a leap in their fishing, adjusting to the new circumstances. And a lot of people actually dropped fishing at all because it doesn't work anymore, kind of. And or they look for, obviously there's always venues that are not mega weedy and easier to fish and that. But then a lot of these gravel pits, basically the only people left fishing there were predator anglers fishing from boats.
Okay.
Because they would usually fish over the weed, and carp anglers, because we loved it. It didn't get easier to catch, but the prices just got much more rewarding and bigger. Yeah.
By rights, Germany, if you're looking at the amount of people that live in Germany and how big it is, you should probably have the biggest carp scene in Europe.
Should.
But there's other factors like the licensing.
That is the one factor.
Which is the one thing because we were meant to go out and film in your part lake, and we're going to talk about your German sort of captures and stuff in due course. But I was fascinated just to know a bit about German carp fishing and how it came to be. But I was due to go out fish one of your lakes with you. Yeah. COVID came, it didn't happen, and all that sort of stuff. But before that, I sort of looked into it, and I knew that there was a bit of a sort of a grey area with regards to releasing fish and the fact that they're for the table and that's still in there. But I spoke to yourself, Claudia Darg, various other people who
she was supposed to fish with us. Right?
Exactly. And the licensing thing is like it's different level. I don't think there's a licensing. Even driving tests here are probably less stringent than getting a fishing license in Germany.
I don't know about that, but yeah. So it is the only country in the world where you actually have to pass a test, and it's also mandatory to take a course leading up to the test. So what I had to do to go fishing in Germany, there is a junior fishing license.
Do you have to do that?
If you are a kid and you want to fish, it's you can make it when you're 14.
Okay.
From 14 to 18 or 17, I'm not sure, but for 3-4 years, you can have that junior fishing license.
Yeah.
No test, no nothing. But you can only fish with an adult with a real fishing license. So what I had to do for years on end was to take my bike and cycle around all the lakes in my area, and then annoy the fuck out of somebody.
Please be my adult.
Can I sit next to you and fish? And let's be honest, like, they weren't too keen about that.
Were they not? Were they not happy?
I mean, it's people. Like, some were nice, some weren't. Right?
What's the worst you had?
Fuck off.
Nice.
And that's why I poached an officer. I mean, they make you, right? You want to fish. Like, it's not like I'm not doing it.
I'm going to do it.
So I poached for the first. Since I was fishing on my own since I was 11, I think.
Okay.
And it's the 80s, right?
Yeah.
No handy, no mobile. In Germany, we call them handies. Don't ask me why.
Handy's brilliant.
Yeah, I think because it's a handheld device.
Nice, good save.
No mobile phones, no nothing. My parents were just, did you do your homework? Yeah. Okay, fuck off then. So I got on my bike. I strapped a rod on my bicycle, right? Then I had my my rucksack, and I would go straight to the River Rhine, which is Europe's biggest river. That thing is 200 meters wide, right? And I was sit there on an abandoned, there was a fabric once, and they used to get coals from the ships to the fabrics.
Yeah.
And there was still like that thing sitting in the water, like a big concrete block, like a dock kind of thing, with a crane on top of it, all rusty and that. And I was sitting there like 3 meters above water level, dangling my little feet, with just a spool of mono, a cork, and actually wine cork, because my dad wouldn't give me a free float because he didn't think it makes any sense. A split shot and a small hook, and I would bicycle down every day in the beginning with just a spool of line. Later I had my rods, and then I had 2 rods, so I built it up gradually.
Mate, you were Urban Banks extreme hardcore.
Catching grasshoppers and turning over rocks for worm, putting it on, just sitting there, letting it the float go round in that
like an eddy in the river,
in the stream that was forming around that big concrete block there, and catching like whatever, right?
Mad.
Roach mostly, and so this is how it started. Then I got my first rod, then later my second, and so on and so on. And But yeah, imagine letting your 10-year-old kid,
You'd
or
never
11,
imagine.
Today, it's absolutely unthinkable. Back then, it was just when the lights go on, like the street light, you come home.
Yeah.
And I think my parents were just like, if he does, all right. And if he doesn't, we just make a new one. Like, I don't know.
Mark 1, Mark 2.
But yeah, I mean, today it would be absolutely unthinkable.
Yeah, it's different times.
Probably someone would call the cops on your parents or whatever. Yeah. But back then it was just like, yeah, that's what kids do. You let them roam. And it didn't hurt me though.
But during this time, I mean, not when you're 11, but when you're 14, you've got your junior license, you're pestering adults, but basically you're just doing it anyway. The license for an adult, talk me through the ins and outs of what you have to do to go.
So once a week, you have to attend a course. It's usually held in like a gym of a school or something like that.
Yeah.
Like all kinds of blokes sitting there who want to do the license. And I mean, not beating my own drum, but I was a better fisherman than all of them in the course I was in, because I was doing it for 15 years already, kind of, right? Not 15 years, but like 10 odd years with my dad in the beginning. Being 4 or 5, I went fishing with my dad. And so by then it was like, yeah, I know this. But you have to learn the most ridiculous stuff. Some of it is not bad. To get, I think there is something to getting a kind of substantial fundamental understanding of the water world.
Yeah.
You learn a lot about all the kind of species living in German lakes, Central European lakes, so to speak. And you learn how to tie knots, certain setups for certain fish, like how to set up a pike rod with a float and a metal trace and stuff like that. Suggested hook sizes, and you also learn about reproduction of fish. Like, for example, one thing that I remember is you had to learn how many eggs per kilo a female pike would produce. I think that should give you an understanding also about the worth of bigger fish.
Yeah.
To keep a bigger fish is much more important than a smaller fish. Funny enough, it goes against the law, where in Germany you have to take out every fish that is over a certain size, but we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, you had to take a course. You learn a lot of stupid stuff, because when I learned it, I already knew that it was at least 10 years outdated.
Right.
Okay. It was basically what I said, the blokes who struggled to catch when the weed grew, how they fished.
Yeah.
Like 30-pound line for roach or something, like really back in the days stuff. Just stupid at times. But you had to do it in this manner.
How many weeks did you have to go to this course for?
I would lie if I say I can really remember, but I think it was like 6 weeks or so. Yeah, like 6 times you had to attend that course.
And then do an exam.
And then you do an exam. First, theory, multiple choice.
God.
So make your marks.
Yeah.
What is the off season for certain species? So when are you not allowed to fish for them? Stuff like that. The pike question, I had that in my test, and I was proud I learned it. Forgot it immediately when I walked out the door that day, of course. Who cares? If you're not a fish breeder, who cares? So you do the multiple choice test. Then they call they had us all go out. They went through the tests, and then they came out, and I remember they were reading off names, and I was like, please say my name, please say my name, please say my name. And I finished, you can go home. Like, you didn't pass the test. I was like, oh God, he didn't say my name. Good Lord.
Oh, gee. So you read out the people that failed?
I was in for round 2.
Right, nice.
Then you get in, and looking back, it reminded me kind of a bit of like Harry Potter. Right? You remember when they all got the hat on and it says which house you're in? Like, you're Hufflepuff, mate. And what we had to do is literally we had to go into a bowl, pick
your name out. Yeah.
Yeah, it said the rod that you had to assemble.
Oh, wow.
And then you had to step up to a table, and you had all kinds of reels, all kinds of rods, all kinds of floats. You get the idea, right?
What did you get? What did you pick?
Light spinning rod for perch.
Oh, belter.
Yeah. So I in my head I was please not the fly fishing rod, please not the fly fishing rod, please not the fly fishing rod, and because they actually distinguish between what we call dry and wet.
Yeah.
So it was like, I don't care for that at all. And I didn't learn it. And I just said, please, not the fly fishing rod. I said, yes. Right. So you put a light spinning rod, small reel, and small lure of some kinds. And it was one of the easiest ones, if I'm honest. Then you have to tie the knots, and they pull it, and I see if you are a capable fisherman. Because in the end, where all this comes from is they want you to be prepared to deal with living creatures.
Yeah.
Which the main idea of it is great. It's just like the school system. It's so outdated. It's like everything else, kind of. Like they came up with it somewhere after the Second World War, and it stayed like that forever. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, same like school. You don't learn anything in school that you actually need.
No.
Don't learn how to take how
pay
to
your bills, mortgages, anything like that.
Your taxes.
Yeah.
Right? Shouldn't you learn how to do your taxes? Everyone has to do it, but no one teaches you. Right? Job appointments, how to speak to someone. That is what kids should. But it's a whole different story. And
I like you like a politician. You going to Prime Minister, mate. I reckon you've got it.
Boris, I'm confident. Yeah, I mean, he might be gone by soon. Right? Edit this out. I would love for them to look at it without ego, because there's politics involved.
Of course.
There's like fishing association members, all 80 plus years old, sitting there in the board, and I would just love for them to refresh it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I am up for it, and I might also not be the best person for it, but I know there's keen younger folks who could just refreshen it, give it a facelift, make it more up to date.
So basically, you get that, you pass your theory, you pass your practical, you've got your license, but within that license, and this is the point that was sort of a bit contentious, is the releasing. If you're going carp fishing, the releasing of carp, you're not meant to release fish over a certain size, are you?
Exactly. So, by definition, most fish, really nearly all of them, except for some invasive species, they have like to translate it properly, it would be like a safety measurement. So meaning if they are under a certain size, you have to put them back, which should give them the opportunity to reproduce at least once or twice. And then they're also still in the best size to eat. Okay. Because normally you don't want to catch a 20-year-old anything
and eat it,
right? It's normally the freshly adults. They are the most tasty and the best ratio of size to everything. Pollution also plays a role, right? Something that lived in a polluted river system for like 20 odd years probably does more harm to you than a fish that lived in the same lake for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think this is, or I know this is where a lot of this stems from. And then obviously we could have left it there and just say it's a minimum size. You can't kill like a tiny pike or so. It had no chance to reproduce. So but
put it back.
Then there's also the case that by law you have to kill a fish if it is over that size. And this is where it gets tricky.
So how'd you get around that then? I don't want to get you shot by some German fishing authority. But so I'm fishing. I've caught an absolute worldie of a like 40-pound common from a lovely weedy German gravel pit. Yeah. By law, that is well over the size. I can't. It's not under the size to put it back, but I need to basically kill it because that's the law.
Yeah. And also, just to people might think that is ridiculous. Why is that? Whenever I explain it to someone, it makes kind of sense.
Yeah.
Because in the German Constitution, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
I think it's one of the first 5 paragraphs in there is, I might not translate it properly, but basically it says like, you're not allowed to harm any human or animal for your own pleasure. It's a bit rough, right? But you get an idea.
Yeah.
If you really boil it down, condense it, and you're honest, which fishermen love to ignore the fact. Right? But if you really condense it, what is catch and release fishing? I mean, the carp or any fish, if you could ask them, and say like, what do you actually prefer, living your best life or getting dragged by your face out of your environment? Of course, every fish would say, I would actually prefer not to get caught, and especially not on a weekly basis like some carp do. Right? So in the end, if you really condense it down, what is catch and release fishing? A mild form of animal cruelty for your own pleasure. That's what it is, if you're really honest. And by German law, that's forbidden. You should not harm an animal for your own pleasure. You should only go fishing to put a meal on the table.
Yeah.
So this is where this comes from. If you catch a fish over the minimum size, you have to kill it, take it, and leave the lake. That's your day's fishing. Nowadays, there's been a lot of... there have been some cases in court where people were, again, environmentalists. I did it twice now.
Yeah.
Like drag people in front of a judge and said, like, he's putting back fish.
What is the sentence for that? What could it
Animal
get
cruelty.
you? Yeah. What could that get you?
A hefty fine. You could lose your fishing license.
Right, okay.
And then you can't fish in Germany anymore. But as far as I know, that never happened.
Right.
But some judge, not too long ago, a couple of years ago, but not too long ago, said, I don't interpret the law in this way. I think if you say you go out to catch, say you want to catch a pike, and it's not a tasty fish, a zander, and you catch your pike, you shouldn't have to kill that. If you really don't want to eat it, if you want to eat zander but not pike, you should be allowed to put a pike back.
So you get away with it that way, do you?
Where you get in trouble is if you take a photo of it, a picture.
Yeah.
Because then they say, then it's trophy fishing. Because immediately people jumped on board and said, oh, I'm catching all these carp on boilies. God knows why. So I'm putting them back. And the judge, all right. Yeah, you can do that.
I'm zander fishing with boilies.
But if you take a picture,
it's trophy fishing.
It's trophy fishing, and you get the same fine as if you would. So
how have you got away with this then?
Whenever, I mean, I'm talking to a mainly English audience. So
100%.
We just put them back, but we don't talk about it.
Yeah. But you got to take like your job. You're going to take.
Yeah, okay. When I take pictures of, I take pictures of fish every day.
Yeah.
Right, when I go fishing, that implements that I always catch when I go fishing.
That many. It's like a big photo shoot.
No, but I would never say where I'm at.
Yeah.
And or would rather lie. And say, I'm Belgium, I'm France.
But that's never flagged up. Nobody's ever gone, oh, I recognise that background or I recognise that.
It happens now.
Yeah.
Because these PETA and these groups, they are catching up.
Yeah, of course.
And we have the tendency to name fish, don't we?
Yeah, of course we do.
And if then somebody brags with, look, I caught Mary, a new record weight. Glad I had her on my arms for once. Right? That implements a lot of stuff. And these people are not stupid either. Right. I mean, they have literally bigger fish to fry, I think.
Yeah, of course.
The fur industry and this and that and whatever. They have bigger fights. But if you really put them on it, and what I know is what happened, that actually carp anglers ratted on carp anglers. They sent these pictures to PETA and stuff. And
that's not great, is it?
No. But you know how people are.
Yeah.
Shitty creatures at times. And then they follow up on it. Hey, free case for us.
Yeah, this is easy.
And then people had to appeal in court, and these PETA guys went to the lakes and took pictures of that bush and to compare it to, or that electricity line in the back, and say, listen, see, judge, like he clearly caught that, and in that video he puts it back, so he's guilty of it.
What about for a UK angler going to Germany if they wanted to fish in Germany? How does that work? Because there might be some guys now that travel's obviously opened up.
I say, mate.
They're there.
I mean, if I speed here, I have to pay the ticket, right?
Yeah. So if you're fishing over there and you haven't got your license,
keep your
you're a
mouth
goner.
shut.
Yeah, we've not said that. Don't do. Keep your mouth shut.
Do whatever, because everyone. I mean, no one kills a carp in Germany. That is the wrong perception that people have.
Yeah.
How have you got so many big carp if you kill? No one does it.
Yeah.
But you cannot talk about it. And that is so far, that is the only thing. Just keep your mouth shut.
Yeah. I like it.
Post pictures.
I find that fascinating, mate. We were talking about it on the phone. I was like, the whole influence of the UK scene and how it got spread, but also just the fact that there's the licenses that sort of stringent, if you like, and there's that much into it. But then there's a scene of sort of a bit of modernism, which has sort of gone, I'll tell you what, lad, we've got it, but we're not going to do this. We're going to let them go and just crack on. That's I think it's brilliant. I think it's a complete contradiction, but I love it.
I mean, it goes for every species. Right?
Yeah.
People fishing for pike facing the same.
Yeah.
They always claim they're in the Netherlands, but I see that. It's not the Netherlands.
No, definitely not.
Because there it's allowed. Everywhere it's allowed. France, Belgium, Netherlands.
Yeah.
Poland, like Italy, everywhere. Right? It's only Germany.
In terms of your, I'm now going to say European captures, but I'm going to centre them around Germany. Talk to me about your style of fishing has very much been synonymous with big carp.
Yeah.
Not necessarily numbers, even though they were runs waters back in the day, but big fish. Where, in terms of your campaigns and the places you fish, I know you're not going to name lakes, for instance, but there's a lot of lakes that have been very local to where you live that you've fished and you've caught sizable carp. What stands out in terms of those chapters and captures? There's been some real big fish, mate, and a lot of them.
So first of all, I obviously went down the organic road that most specimen anglers go down. So in the beginning, you want to just catch as many as you can.
Yeah.
And then quite quickly, you get caught up in that numbers game, right? The bigger they get, the better, the more it feels like an accomplishment, the more you get complimented by other people. I think it's always plays a part in that development.
Yeah.
And it's also obviously, they're the bigger prizes. They're rare. And so you go down that road. And I followed that road to quite some extent from my first 15 kilo carp. I actually caught my first 15 kilo carp when I was like 13, 14 years old or so. And then I had this period where I fell out of fishing because I was chasing other things in life during puberty.
Yeah.
And then I kind of rediscovered fishing in my late, maybe 1920s. I can't really remember. But it started with poaching once again. So, and not carp fishing. Even though I left fishing doing carp fishing. But during my puberty, I sold everything. Probably bought other stuffs with it.
Wow.
Experimenting and stuff.
Nice.
And then I kind of got the fishing buzz back. But I think the first thing I bought was a cheap spinning rod and some lures. And I started to go poaching in a local river system at night and catching some sander and stuff. And but then it spiraled out of control really quick. And I was back in the carp fishing scene. And I had a car by then, which obviously was the absolute game changer. And I'm really lucky that I live in an area, if I would have to compare it, and I hope I don't butcher it, but like the Cotswold.
Yeah, Cotswold.
Just like lakes and lakes and lakes and lakes. Yeah. And so I could explore countless lakes. And I started doing so. And quite organically, my next goal then was catch. It was a short period of like 6 months or season where it was just numbers again. Just get back into the groove and adapt to everything that changed in these 4 to 5 years where I fell off. And it was, I got back in kind of when the first quarter underwater.
Okay.
came out. So perfectly timing, basically, to get completely brainwashed by Daddy Fabras. Fishing side 8 hooks and stuff, which was on vogue at that time.
Was it?
Yeah, if you remember back, it was all tiny. Right?
Even in I'm thinking Germany, the size of your
we
fishing.
adapted it straight away. Like,
right.
Danny said so. Like, we bought it. It worked, and so. But yeah, it is quite interesting because then everything fell into that time period, like the internet, carp fishing forums. None of that existed when I left but it was in a full upswing when I rejoined, and I was like, "Whoa, what is going on?" Right? And I had so much to soak in and adapt, and knowledge to be gained. I had a subscription to Carpology, for example, when it was like I don't want to lie because someone might make the math on it, but during the first 15 issues or so.
Really?
Yeah. I think I might be the first German ever to have a subscription to Carpology back then.
Joe, and Rob, let us know. They'll have the record of that.
And I was waiting so desperately for every month to get that issue, and because it was so much better than everything on the German market. That's why Carter back then had such a big impact. Yeah. Even though most Germans couldn't understand it, they would still, like, it didn't exist. Nothing like it existed back then. There were fishing videos. I remember, for example, as a kid, in my local fishing store, there were VHS cassettes that you could rent for 5 Mark, Deutschmark a day. And I seen them all 20 times, so I probably left like my first car payment there over the years. And I was begging my mum, and we had like a 5 Mark coin back then. Can I have a 5? I can rent it. You seen them? Oh, yeah. And then I watched it like 5 times until I had to return it the next day. But then all of a sudden, new levels, new quality, so I jumped on it. Like I said, beginning catching just loads, fine honing my fishing, getting everything quite good again, and the new knowledge obviously helped. Like, I learned what that funny clip on the spool is for.
Yeah.
Back then, I actually thought that thing was only there. Like, when you go to the shop, get new lines spooled up, which I learned from James Massey that people over here don't do it.
What?
Everywhere in Germany, in every tackle shop has a line spooling machine.
Right, yeah.
So you bring your spool, they have a big wall of line back, and you point at the line, or you just ask them, give me a good carp line. And then they have these 1,000 or 10,000 meter spools, like big bulky things, put them in, and then they fill your spool, and then they use the clip to bing, hold the line. I thought literally it was made for that purpose. And then I was reading, hitting a clip. We were just casting in the bushes before all the time, like 10 times short, then most of the time 1 time too far in the bush, snap off, start again, and then you got it perfectly under the bush, and that's a take.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I was able to get it right every time. Right? Complete game changer.
Yeah.
So I adapted all that because there was so much knowledge to be gained, which wasn't available in Germany before. And so I chased numbers for a year or so, just catching as many as I could. But then quite quickly I wanted to catch up on where I left, which was a 15 kilo carp, which I was really proud of. And by then, obviously, carp had grown also. So there were now 20 kilo carp to be caught. And I wanted one of them. So, and that's when I fell into the big fish game, kind of. By then, there were already 50 pounders, so 25 kilo. But that was just so out of my league for a couple of years at least. Because like you are when you're 20, in your early 20s, what does the world cost, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It took me 1 or 2 years to get also an understanding of the lakes around my area, which one holds big fish and how are they perceived, and
how did you formulate that? Because here in the UK carp scene, especially more so to date, probably in reference at the same time you're talking, a lot of the lakes that people are fishing, the stock is pretty known. There might be 1 or 2 fish that are, if you like, unknowns, but generally fish have got characters, they've got names. You know that if you fish there's 2 40-pounders, they come out twice a year.
Back then,
that's not the same.
That wasn't the case. There were known fish already.
Okay. Yeah.
There were already known fish, and you would know that fish lives in that lake. But there were so many lakes and so little carp anglers still, that a lot of them were untapped water.
Yeah.
But I fished a lake that I knew held a 20 kilo fish, And I was lucky enough to catch it, I think, in the second year. And from there on, I kind of, I bitten off more than I could chew, because I went to what was considered the hardest lake in, don't know, the country, maybe the country. And
in what way? In what regard? Why was it the hardest lake?
For German standards, not big, but it's 60 hectare, which is like 120 acres or so.
Right. Okay. So yeah, we'd call it big.
It's also not small for German, but it's not gigantic or huge. But I remember driving there in my small Vauxhall B, like a Corsa. Do you know the Corsa?
Oh, Corsas. What
Corsa
a car,
B,
mate.
Like, it looked like a little Beetle to a degree.
Nice.
Right? I went there, and there's a path down from the parking lot, which is also like a cruising spot at night.
Oh, no.
Yeah, really sketchy place. You walk down, and I remember standing there just looking over the lake and just thinking, how am I supposed to catch a fish in here? Like, and at the same time, I knew that back then, this is 2002, roughly. Maybe 4. I didn't get it on. Yeah. I could pin it down, but it doesn't matter, I think. Early 2000s. It held a 30 kilo fish, which was one of the first 30 kilo fish in Germany. That's why this place got so known. But it was mega low stock. If my informations are correct, they estimate the stock back then being like something between 25 and 30 odd fish.
In 120 acres?
Yes.
That's like German raspberry.
Yeah, kind of. So I joined the club, which back then was easy.
Yeah.
Every club. You just contacted them, bing, you're in. Today, I don't think I can join a new fishing club anymore.
Really?
Yeah. Which for various reasons. A, they are all full.
Yeah.
If they have a decent carp stock, the clubs are all full in Germany. And there's hundreds of thousands of lakes, and they are all full, the clubs. B, many clubs Google you. And if they see your carp angler, they don't want you.
You're a goner, mate, aren't you?
Because too many carp anglers on every lake. So they don't want you. They want predator anglers. They want float fishers. They want feeder anglers, but no carp anglers. No, please don't. Not more tents on the lake. And when they see you work for a company, game over. And but that's the name of the game.
Yeah, of course.
And still, you have to. Sometimes it's not fair, but sometimes all that what I said, speaking against you, sometimes works for you. Then the president of a club is a fan.
Yeah,
and you skip the line and you're in with them on a phone call, where normally there's a waiting list of 5 years. It's not fair, but that's how the world works.
Of course,
know the right people, get into the right places, and so. But back then, I joined there. Great thing back then, I had a buddy who I brought into fishing, and I put him up to place as quick as I could to be my carp fishing companion. Right? And for that lake, I bought my first echo sounder, my first inflatable boat. Everything was a first there, because back then it was all casting before, or the lake where I caught that my first 20 kilo carp. They had boats on site.
Okay.
So metal boats, you could use them to place rods, which by now is also forbidden. And it goes to shit. If I'm honest, carp fishing in Germany goes to shit, because everything gets forbidden.
Yeah.
Until it is kind of like here. But it's not what I grew up with. That's why it's hurting me so much.
Right.
I want to use a boat. I want to place a rod. I want to use an echo sounder. This is what carp fishing is to me.
Yeah.
And I remember us on the phone, we talked a lot about upbringing.
Yeah.
What you grew up with is what you consider to be real. And we were very free in the beginnings of German carp fishing. Everything was allowed.
Why have they banned it subsequently?
Yeah, overuse and misuse, and putting rods out 400 meters, and then the carp anglers collects your line. And instead of just moving on the opposite side and fishing in the edge, people drag their lines out 600 meters to the opposite side. It's what carp anglers tend to do.
It's way better to do that. It's way better to do that.
And of course, if enough it piles up, and then the boss of the club is just tired. Oh, I always hear about these carp anglers. Just ban it.
Yeah, fair enough.
And there's funny stories like that where bait boats are banned. Then the head of the club he learns how to fish with that bait, and I know that the big pike are way out in the lake, so they allow bait boats. And 2 days later, he sells his bait boat. Bait boats are banned again. Safety zone or no fishing. No fishing zones get moved wherever the head of the club wants it to be, because they block a couple of swims and say, no, that's a spawning area. No one is allowed to fish there.
And that's their swims.
2 years later, they open it and they are in there. First thing, right? So, but completely different. That's the politics of fishing clubs.
Yeah,
in general, I think. The first year we fished that lake, we blanked all year long.
How frequently were you fishing it? Weekly?
Every weekend.
Okay.
Every weekend back then. I was working night shifts. So we would turn up to the lake Friday afternoon. I would leave to work, leave him there, my friend, with the rods, and return early Saturday morning, basically, with breakfast. We had grub. I went to sleep until the afternoon. And from there on, we had fishing for Saturday evening until Sunday afternoon. And then we would leave the lake again.
But you blanked for a year?
For a year, yeah.
Do you see any carp?
Oh, yeah. Yes. I remember one time I was out in a boat in my dinghy. And we fished so horrible back then. We were fishing mono, long distance out, 200-300 meters out. Because there is a huge, it used to be 2 lakes.
Okay.
With a road in the middle. And where that road was, there were a lot of these landlines for electricity.
Right.
And then when they gave up that it's a coal pit, when they gave it up, they let the water levels rise. So that street got just flooded. And it's now the biggest plateau you can imagine. You run straight through the lake in the middle. And this is obviously a great feature. And also these landlines just collapsed after a couple of years. They rotted away and just collapsed. And now you have these piles laying there on top of each other. And it's just an awesome holding area for fish, naturally. And so we were fishing out to that feature. It was the obvious feature. And by now, I fished that lake still. I know it's so easy to catch. But back then, not easy, but much easier than we made it look like back in the days when we were rowing out in our dinghy, fishing mono 250, 300 meters out. What we did is in the morning, instead of reeling it all in, we would just follow the line in the dinghy, just basically pinch it under your shoulder and just reel out. And when you arrived at the lead, we would just get the lead up, check the rig, maybe put a new hook bait on, and just lower it back onto the spot and show you, tighten up. And he would just tighten it a bit slack, put it on the clear spot, trickle some new bait over it, and then go back. That's how we used to fish. And one day I was out, a big clear spot on the marginal shelf of that road.
Yeah.
I found that one day, and I always put a rod on it. And one day I was looking down to see if the bait was still gone. And all of a sudden, just the biggest carp I've ever seen just swam right under me. I was just staring at it and gesturing to my mate. Huge, man, huge, here, huge. And so I remember quite briefly one night, coming to the end of the season for us back then, beginning of November. It was mid-November, I think. It was raining all weekend. Horrible. We were sleeping in a 2-man armadillo. You remember these?
Yeah, it's friendly, mate, as well. 2 of you in there.
Yeah. I mean, we were young. Right? We didn't know better. And he just didn't. He had rods that I gave him. He had a rod pot he bought for himself and stuff, but he didn't have his own tent yet. He was in the upbringing, but I dragged him with me everywhere because I didn't want to blank alone.
Yeah.
And still, till this day, I love to fish with somebody, not in a social way, everyone doing his own thing, fish as a team. Because you can just try so much more stuff when you have more rods. And if you approach it from the beginning as, okay, we have these 3 or 6 rods between us, or in France, 8 at times, what we're going to do? If you really approach it like this as a team, then you can be successful much quicker than if everyone does their own thing. And then you might just repeat the same stuff a couple of times, which can be successful, but it doesn't have to be. And back then, it was just about getting a bite, no matter who, no matter where, how. We tried everything. Right? And rolled our own bait back in the days. And so
Did you?
Yeah, I remember it quite. It was lovely. And I remember that one weekend when nothing happened all weekend. For whatever reason, we thought it was mega cool to fish our rods like mega high. It just looked cool back then.
Yeah, it just looked cool.
Big lake, you have to fish them high, man. It has to be. It's law. And it was so windy and raining. Oh, and in the night it was one of those first autumn storms, and just twigs were crashing into our rods all night. So you had bleep, beep, beep, beep all night long, and then it eased off in the early morning, first light, and we kind of fell asleep both really deeply. And then I was awoken by bleep, bleep, bleep. Just to continue. At a certain point, I ignored it quite a while, believe me that. But it was too continuously. And just one alarm, the one sound, not different. Like beep, burp, beep. It was beep, long pause. Beep, beep. So I ripped open the sleeping bag and I saw wheat bed, swan, everything we had before, which excited us, and we thought he had to take, and it wasn't. And I opened the zipper, looked out, and we had our 2 rods each, like facing out to the very distance, and one was just much more bent than the others. Yeah, wheat bed for sure. Right? No swan inside, so got into the waders, got out, got to the rod, looked at the spool. And like I said, mono, big stretch.
Yeah, loads.
So you had just like a really slow click, click. And I looked down and said, Marco, it's the name of my friend. Marco, come out. All grumpy. Coming out. What? It's strange, isn't it? I can't see a wheat bed. Or what is it? No swan, no nothing. Sure, it's not a fish, right? So I guess I have to look. Yeah. Then we can leave the rod in because it was about packing up time Sunday morning. So I went out in the boat, left the rod there because I thought I would just, again, follow the line. And because we were fishing big stones or heavy leads, I would go out, get it up, detach that, so he can then reel in easier than reeling in the big stone or the big lead on a long distance. So I followed the line, and then I came to the spot where it should be. There was my marker bottle sitting there. Line went on, and it dawned on me. Followed the line into the first wheat bed, into the next wheat bed, into the next. Just cleared it.
What, still handlining it? You've not gone back for the rod?
No. I didn't know what I was doing.
Quality.
And in the end, I just got a rig up.
No.
We had our chance there. And that was the first contact after a year of blanking.
Oh, man.
We lost the first fish. And it all came good next season. We caught a couple.
Good big ones? Good ones?
No. Like it should be. We caught 3 of the smallest fish of the lake first. Originals. There were no stockies. The lake hadn't been stocked for like 20 odd years or so. Originals, which made us mega proud. But I had one of the first run-ins with German carp fishing legends there, which impressed me till this day because we were fishing. We didn't fish that area anymore. We said it has to be easier somewhere else. So we went into a bay that I always, back then we referred to it as Pig's Bay. Don't ask me why. Never seen a pig there. I don't know where that name came from, right? But we always called it Pig's Bay. And now you can't fish it anymore because there's a water ski thing set up there. But back then we fished in there, and that bloke came over. I obviously knew who he was, like German carp fishing royalty, standing in my swim. He was friendly. He was also like a, I don't know what you call it, a freelance bailiff. Like he had, he was allowed to check your licenses, and so could I see your license? Yeah, of course. Yeah. All right, all good. Caught anything? Yeah, we're here for 2 days. We did a week there. Actually, we did a week or 5 days. I think we fished there. I took holidays to blank, but in the end, we had 3 fish. Awesome! Oh, mega result! Awesome! Congratulations! Big ones. I said no, smaller fish, and then we had Marcus set till 400 meters out. Also doing what gets you in trouble nowadays. Yeah. But back then it was just, you do it. If you can, you do it. Yeah. There was a plateau 400 meters out. Why not fish it? Right? And you look over the water, looking at the markers. Right-hand rod, right? Is it? Yeah. All 3 of them? Yeah. I know. Turned around and walked away.
What a legend.
I just say, Jesus Christ, man, there's levels to this shit.
Yeah.
There is sure levels to this shit. We have to learn a lot, man. And that run-in, again, it's one of those with the lady that I talked about. There's been multiple stages in my life where I had meetings with people, or where people who I don't think they know how much I owe them.
Yeah.
Because I thought we were gods. Right? We caught 3 carps from one of the it is considered, back then it was considered the hardest lake in the county I live in. Right? And we caught 3 carp. Right? And I think, from here on, it's easy, right? So we did it now. We know how to do it. And he just walked in, looked at where we had our rods positioned, and he called it. Like, throw in that one. Right? Mm-hmm. I know. Basically also saying you can just reel in the other 3.
Yeah, that's the only one that's doing fish, mate.
Which we did afterwards. We never fished the same spots again. Not that we know anything better, but from there on we tried everything, but we never fished the same spots again, because he basically just confirmed to us, nah, that's shit, man. You're wasting your time. So, that's how we kicked it off there.
Did you fish more? Did you catch any of the big ones out of there? Did you carry on that venue?
Unfortunately not.
Right.
It's just how life...
Yeah.
My mate, he didn't really stayed into it, and he fell out of carp fishing quite quickly afterwards. I was on my own again, and I did like a full circle, actually went back to the park lakes that I fished as a kid, because there were now 20 kilo fish in there. And then it took me 15 years for me to revisit that one lake, which now is still far from easy, but it got restocked since then, and it's just completely different. But the old stock is still there, and I caught 3 of the very, very originals.
Wow.
Yeah. All being 25 kilo plus. But the biggest fish back then, which is a fish that was called Miss Sophie.
Miss Sophie, what a name for a fish.
She must have died, because she was a friendly one, coming out once a year, which doesn't sound very friendly, but when you look at the size of the venue and how hard it is to fish there, etc., it was considered to be a friendly one. And she was never found dead. She just never came out again. And now for 10 years or so she's clearly dead. Yeah.
But you had 3 25+ kilo fish
when I rejoined, not in the...
No, not
you always have to
hit.
say that correct, because Raspberry isn't Raspberry anymore.
It's different, time moves on.
And that lake isn't what it was. It's still considered to be one of a really hard lake for various reasons. The walks are epic. You have to oftentimes take a boat to cross to the other side. So that's why most people just can't be bothered.
Yeah.
But that's also why I love it. I'm there alone.
That freedom element.
Yeah. Like midweek, I'm on my own a lot of times. Right. I see the mother boys coming to bait up at night. You see the head torches and stuff. But when they are all there on the weekend, you have three anglers is a lot.
Is it on 120 acres?
On a weekend. But midweek, usually I'm alone. And I love it.
And you're fishing on there, is it all bait orientated? Have you got spots going? Yeah. So that's pretty much how you fished.
It is something I think also, it is a lot of, because I now have the perspective. I know France, I know the UK, I know Germany. It is funny how Germany is a real in-betweener and then has its own rules in some points.
Yeah.
What I mean with in-betweener is, for example, like, you can't just come over and fish it.
Yeah.
And even some people, like, I think Nick Hellier would say in his mind, I know I can say that because he said it, Germany might be the best carp country in all of Europe.
A lot of good anglers have said that.
But you can't go there and fish.
No.
That's what keeps us safe, so to speak.
You're protected from us Brits storming on you.
A, for the license. I mean, I know my ways around it, as you know, for visitors. But I can get you a license, so to speak, which is not common knowledge that exists. But every puddle is a club. Some clubs have 2 or 3 lakes, but literally every puddle, every club lake that you're looking at is a fishing club. And you can't just buy a ticket and fish there. Day tickets don't exist. They so rarely that I say they don't exist. In all of Cologne, we have like 2 day ticket lakes where you can just go into a shop, buy a license and go there and fish. You have to join the club. To join the club, it's an entrance fee. It's an annual fee. You have to do work hours every year. So you can only do so many. Afterwards, you're rinsed from your money, and you have to work every weekend in another club to do your work duties. Because if you don't, you have to pay extra. Right. So you have to decide where to fish and commit to. And that's also, you could come over, you get a license, but still you're not allowed to fish. You have to join the clubs first. And then, of course, there's certain rules where if I am a member in the club, I can buy you a guest ticket.
Yeah, of course.
And this is how I take Alan. Ollie,
so it's quite,
Henry, or how I would take you if you.
It's quite protected, which is a good thing from you, as you say, from your
but it's also I can't just. It is very British in that, so it's clubs, and the prolific lakes are waiting lists and stuff. So it's very like it is over here, And then what's very unique, I think, to Germany and to German carp fishing scenes is that you, on those high prolific lakes. Usually how it is ran, not officially, but in reality, you can claim a swim.
Right.
And that's your swim for the year.
Yeah.
Or if there's still free ones, you could also jump and say, I'm now fishing on and baiting this swim. And then they will respect it. But you also give up the old
swim.
Right? So on that lake, for example, it's run like that. Because everyone knows it's rock hard. Everyone knows you have to put in so much work.
Yeah.
You go there to bait up. For me, it's an hour drive to get there because of traffic.
Yeah.
Then I have to use a boat. Go then a boat, bait my swim, go back. It's 2 hours. Right? 3 hours combined just for baiting up. You don't want to get there and someone is fishing your swim.
No.
It happens, of course. It happens when people are not in the know. Or they are, how we call them, the weekenders.
Okay.
But the hardcore, the inner core.
They respect each other's areas. They let you get on with it.
We complement each other on our captures. I mean, sometimes you're jealous, right? But still, I wouldn't even have a chance to catch that fish that day because I'm fishing like literally 500 meters away from that guy. But that also leaves you with, it restricts you. But it also gives you a lot of freedom at the same time. You can play around. You can actually test stuff. You can just pre-bait, which is impossible on many of the British waters. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't pre-bait at Bluebell, for example.
Quite odd. Quite odd to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
For you on that lake and that venue, you've had success coming back, as you said, in recent times. Bait has obviously been a key to draw fish into an area. What else have you found it successful, or has it just been a case of the fish have been on you and you've caught them then? Is there anything you've done particularly to be successful on there?
I mean, especially in spring.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's the shallows. Right? Spring is, I think, the most predominant time of the year where The weather dictates the location more than anything else. And usually also no one starts these real baiting campaigns pre-spawning.
Okay.
So most times and most lakes that I know, spring is open game. You just pop in, I pop my drone up, find them, hunt them, catch them. That's how I love to do it for the last couple of years. I enjoyed it. Not much going on, not being committed to a certain swim or spot, a baiting campaign. You just react to what's ever given to you that day when you arrive. What swim is taken, which is not, where do I see them? Hunt them. It's more hunting.
Yeah.
My autumn style of fishing is that bait and wait, so to speak, but I just know how effective it is when you can do it undisturbed. Not going to say on these lakes that it's then a given and you rake through the stock, because there's other people doing it too.
Yeah.
And still fish being fish, especially when food is an abundance, there's overload of food given. It doesn't work as good anymore, but it still works. Right? But the discipline is absolute key. It has to be daily. It has to be something for them to find and eat day and day and day. The bigger the lake, the smaller the stock, the harder it gets, obviously.
How much bait have you put in that place?
It really depends.
Autumn baiting, give me, let's say this year you're fishing it.
15 kilo every other day.
Every other day?
Yeah.
Of boilie?
Just boilie.
Go on.
Everything else is bream food.
So there's bream, tension, everything else in there.
Of course it is. Yeah, it's a natural lake. That's also something, like every German lake is rammed with silverfish, bream, roach, tench. So you're competing with all of them. And catfish, they can also, once they turn onto boilies, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
I over the years, when we didn't really completely touch up on where I ended my big fish life, so to speak, because to me, I call it ended now.
Do you?
Yeah.
Why?
I done it. Sounds mega arrogant, I know, but I set at one point, now we're going a bit back in history, but at one point I set up a goal of catching a 30 kilo carp from Germany. Because all these French fish and stuff, also only public lakes count in my book, but that's my
he's one of you. I like this. He's one of these, isn't he?
I am one of these.
Yes.
But I don't judge. It's just my own.
That's your take. That's cool.
That's my own.
Yeah.
Yeah. I judge, but I don't tell. I think because everyone judges.
Yeah.
At least for yourself, you do. Right. But, and it's all right. It's like, that's a whole different topic. Carp fishing can be so much to so many people.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, all these French fish that I catch, they don't count in my book. I'm proud of some of them, and I love some of them.
Yeah.
But more for the trip itself. If I could choose a 30 kilo carp from France, one fish a week, or 4 20 kilo carp over the course of that week, I would usually always take the 4 20 kilo carp, which are still big fish, don't get me wrong, right? And some weeks I would love 120 pound fish, because I did Wanks blanking in France. Of course I did. But what I mean with that, if I go on a trip, to me it's the whole experience.
Yeah, of course.
The landscape and catching is, the more you catch, the more enjoyable it usually is. And that's why we fish take on take. Whenever I go abroad or on a trip, we always fish take. I don't know what's the English word.
Yeah, rotate takes.
Well,
share the rods.
We always do. Yeah. We always do. We always fish. Whoever, if you want to go fishing abroad with me, that's a given. Because I just can't, I could never drive home and I had 16 fish that all came from one spot and you blanked all week. What a for holiday is that?
Yeah, but as you say, that's different. Your sort of fishing when you say you've done it, was that goal you set for yourself?
Or on my own for years on end. I ended up at a lake that I'm really emotionally attached to. I'm also part of the board of that club by now.
Right.
But yeah, this is when I went through the motions, caught 20 kilo carp, etc. Went on that big lake.
Yeah.
And then after some time, I ended up at that place because I knew it held a German 30 kilo carp. And no one was fishing it. No, it was basically empty. No one was fishing it because it was, to fish there, it's a lot. The walks, it's ridiculous. Like half an hour walk from the next parking lot and with a trolley and blah, blah, blah.
Is it
really
similar
hard.
size, 120 acres, 60 hectares, bigger?
Even bigger.
Even
bigger, yeah. 160 acres or something like that.
Well, and stock?
Dwindling.
Oh, no, really?
And on the decline when I arrived there. Because the fish had reached, or the majority of stock had reached their prime 2-3 years before I arrived. And the guy I knew that he was fishing there. I knew the numbers that he could, I was fishing for 120 kilo fish a year. He had 20 a year. So it was like mind blowing. But I never considered fishing there. The drive was so long. The effort that I knew he was putting in, I wasn't willing to do. It built up to the point where I was where everything aligned in my life, that it happened organically. He basically retired from that lake.
Yeah.
And said, "Don't you want to take over my swim? I can tell you how to fish it, basically." Because there were 1 or 2 other guys fishing it, but 1 or 2 guys on a lake like that with multiple 25 kilo fish, so multiple 60 and 70 pounders on.
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
And these swims were taken. But he said, "If you want, then I basically put the word out.
Yeah,
swim is now yours. That's my chance. I have to do this." And I did. For 4 years in a row, I fished only one swim.
No.
For 4 years. I did.
The same spots in that swim? Everything is concentrated? Or did you
tweaked it a little bit here and there because I thought, but I put in my own extra efforts. What's the past tense of diving? Dove?
Yeah?
Yeah, I dove. I got me a bottle. I dove down to really see how are they entering the swim probably and why, and understand where to position line lay and fish it in a slightly different angle, la-di-da-di-da. Don't know if it mattered. But funny enough, back then, when I started, I had knowledge of that 170 pounder. Right? And again, also it's what you are brought up with, right? For a German, it is common knowledge that a carp in a German lake is stocked this size.
Yeah, tiny.
Tiny. Right? We don't stock 30 pounders.
Yeah.
To me, it feels wrong. Again, am I judging? Yes, but only for myself. If I was brought up with it differently, like
if you brought up with
stock ponds and then they put in big fish and then you catch the record carp, basically it was stocked last week. To me, it feels wrong.
So that 70 pounder has grown from something that's like 2-3 ounces.
And to me, that still means something.
Yeah, it's pretty mega, isn't it?
Yeah. And basically, also, it got to the size on naturals. Because it's not the bait. Yeah, after a while, a lot of bait went in. But still, I always say, like, they grow to 50 pounders, 50 plus-ish, and then it's bait, which makes them excess 60, 70 pounds. Okay. Usually that is the truth. So I went there knowing of that 170 pounder, and obviously there were backup fish to be caught, but that fish was the target.
The one, exactly.
It's like the Bergfield comment or something. It's nice to catch the others, but you're there for the one fish. Right? And I didn't catch it in my first year. But what I did when I arrived there, before the scene on that lake was not really friendly. Guys fishing each other, respecting the swim thing, but they couldn't stand each other. And when I came in, for whatever reason, I'm not always the most social guy, but it happened somehow, looking back, that I brought everyone on the table, kind of. And we then exchanged WhatsApp messages and also catching who caught what, because there is no real competition when you're fishing on the opposite side of a huge lake, right? It's more like encouragement. I had 2 fish this morning. That meant for you, the lake switched on. I should drop everything and get into my swim, because if they get their heads, there's a fair chance I catch one. And the mindset going there was always, I set myself up for a nice blanking, right? Because catching wasn't what you expect. You did everything for it. That's where my hook sharpening came in because
Was that there?
Yeah. That's where when you wanted to. I am fine. I have a saying that I still repeat to this day, but it came up there where I said, I'm fine blanking, knowing that I did everything I could.
So it's not like you're going to blank on that. It's just a completely different style of angling that you're used to, isn't it? But if you're on there, it's not like you've blanked and you start going through the motions and you're like, oh, that'll do because I'm not going to hook one anyway. You are stringently making sure that everything is as good as you can possibly get it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The fishing there and also the fish there at that time meant more to me than anything ever since. It was where everything aligned, my mindset, my life circumstances, everything aligned, and I was in completely tunnel vision. I mean, to an unhealthy degree.
Talk to me about that. That's an area that a lot of people don't. A lot of people say, and I've seen it a million times, and I'm guilty of it. I think when you go into a podcast with somebody, you sort of talk about the grandeur of these captures. If you talk about the England scene, the Burfield Common, Mary, you talk about amazing shots, chunky knit cardigans back in the day, all that sort of stuff. What you will never encapsulate is everything that goes around that in terms of the sacrifice that people have to make to do that and why not everybody's caught them.
Yeah.
So talk to me about where you said it's become unhealthy. Where's that line? What's going on?
The amount of, that's not the unhealthy part, but the money I spent on gas alone, getting there, time in traffic, bait. I wasn't sponsored or anything. Like I paid for that stuff, right? Jeez. So, and I was putting in again, like 10, 15 kilos every other day. So I spend probably $5,000 each year, just for a chance to catch that stupid thing and put it back.
Man.
But the unhealthy part was I wouldn't fish anywhere else. Like people inviting me, friends saying, "Hey, come on, let's fish a weekend here on a day ticket." Like he's coming. I can't. I physically can't. I can't. If I have a chance to fish, I have to fish there. What if that is my day? And I, in my eyes, wasted with you.
Yeah.
And that is where it gets unhealthy. Because a time with friends meant nothing to me. For the idea that this could be the day, knowing that the chances are...
It's not going to be the day, is it?
No. And you know it, air pressure was shit, like everything was shit. But what if an angler, I would consider myself wasting my time with friends when I could fluke it out.
Yeah.
And as a German saying, like, the line must be wet.
Yeah, true. You're not going to catch them sitting at home or with your mates, are you?
The line must be wet. Otherwise, there's no chance.
How do you struggle? Did you struggle with that whole element of being there, or were you that obsessed that it didn't really matter? You were basically going to be there until you caught it. There was never a waning or a point where you thought, this is... No?
I was confident enough in my ability and what I was doing that I knew it is a question of time. It could be 10 years, though. And at that point, I was willing to sit it out. 10 years in that swim, if it has to be. I know it comes here because it was caught from there before. I know I'm catching other carp. At a certain point, then I caught one or two. I know the area was perfect. It is the best swim on the lake, looking back.
Why?
Still. Everything, you can only fish half the lake.
Okay. God, that makes it easy, doesn't it?
Yeah. You can only fish half the lake. Then it's so weedy and so deep that many swims don't make sense.
How deep?
Up to 40 meters.
This sounds like an absolute hole. You can only fish half the lake of 160 acres. It goes down to 40 meters.
Yeah. And you can't fish the shallows because all the shallows are out of bound. That's half of the lake. Because it's a beach. They created a beach there for people to swim. Then there's a surf club and some yachts, some sailing boats. And the jetty. The swim that I fish is the first swim to the jetties. And this was basically them entering the shallows and exiting. That was my swim.
No wonder there's not many German carp anglers on this lake, mate. I'd give that a massive miss.
Which most German carp anglers did.
Yeah.
They just looked at it. Oh, it's always the same. In springtime, word got round. Even in the winters, people talk. Oh, giant fish in there, right? And a beautiful fish. And blah, blah, blah. Springtime, you had the new ones.
Yeah.
By June, they were all gone.
Gone, yeah.
And we had it to ourselves again. Right? Don't mind, I would sit there from March onwards to claim my swim.
Yeah.
Knowing there's no fish in my swim before June. So from March to June, I went there at times and I struggled to put the rods out.
That's what, yeah.
I just had to claim the swim. I had to be seen. When the new ones would arrive, they would see me.
Leave you swim alone.
And know, that's one's taken. You had to be there, especially on the weekends. You had to be there because that's when the newbies come.
Fair play.
And the story on how I caught the fish is so ridiculous. Right? Because, like I said, I was the one kind of bringing the boys together who fished there. Also, a very known guy now in the Nash team in Germany, Jan, he came in, fished also the opposite side. They three were basically all sitting opposite to me. And I was the only one on the other side. Due to the makeup of the shape of the lake, it makes sense. And so we had this WhatsApp group after a while, where we then exchanged informations and stuff. And it was my fault, really, that I made it so sociable that they one day decided, let's have a social then. And I basically created my own nightmare. Oh, that one. And obviously, because they fished like 200 meters apart on the opposite bank.
You're closer to go to them, aren't you? Oh, no.
I should spend the night fishing, not in my own swim.
How'd you do it? You wouldn't do it, would you? Would you do it?
I didn't want to do it. I was searching for excuses. But it all aligned that I was in Dubai with my bird on holidays.
That's so that sentence there is so English, mate. You spend too much time. I was in Dubai with my bird.
I picked it up, yeah. So I came back and they were plotting that thing, right? And it was supposed to be when I was away. And I was like, yes, I got round the social.
Yeah.
Just imagine the mindset. Right? I don't have to be with other people. Right? So, and then they shifted it. Mark, when you are back? I said, yeah, on this and that day. Yeah, then we shifted to that week so you can be with us. I said, I wish I left it where I found it when I got to the lake. Everyone hating each other. Yeah, so we do a big barbecue and get on the beers. And so we then all meet in the middle in Jan's swim and have a big barbecue. And I was I was searching for an out, but I couldn't fish. That's what I realized quite quickly. I wanted to fish that day, but I couldn't. They would see my head torch in the morning or something. Like I couldn't. If I lied to them, would have seen. Then I would be a real dick.
Yeah, you've united it, and then they're all going to end up hating you.
So then, and I would have to admit to myself that is a real dickish move. Right? So I gave in and said, "Okay, yeah, I'm coming. I will fish for pike or something. Let's put a live bait out or something. It's forbidden in Germany, scrap that. I put a dead bait out.
Almost dead
because
bait.
there's huge pike in there. So I thought, just do something. Just cast in the horizon, just sleep and have get that over with and I can fish my swim again. Right? So that day I went round, at least put bait in, got round. And then we pushed the barrow. I met up with Jan in the parking lot, pushed the barrow a long way. Arrived in his swim, and there was like another swim like 20, 30 meters to his right where I wanted to go. And he was like, because there was a possibility, like a cutout in the trees, 5 meters next to him. I said, why don't you pop in there, mate? I said, yeah, you're fishing. I said, I'm fine. Then just bait a big strip because he was basically baiting the marginal shelf.
Yeah.
I was like, just bait a strip and you put 2 on them. We're blinking anyway. Right? I said, all right, then. Why not? Right? Okay, that's really kind. Because I also knew there is a fair chance because he caught fish.
Right, he's caught fish from there before. Okay.
Yeah. So, all right, if you really don't mind, because I wouldn't done it. Interrupting with his fishing. I just felt like, I'm the one who really got it bad, right? Because I can't fish my swim. You are all doing your fishing. And I was really not happy with everything. And he was like, yeah, he's like, all right, I put one rod on there. So because he was just baiting up with a spoon, gets really deep there. He was fishing
from the bank?
Yeah, 10 meters deep.
Right.
10 meters depth he fished. There was like a terrace. It was really going really steep to 10. Then you had a terrace, and then it dropped off to 16 meters.
Right.
And he was fishing that terrace, so to speak. And so he baited up, but then he put out his rods with a bait boat to be really accurate, to make sure it drops exactly where he wanted it. Put up my rod too, and one I just chucked into nowhere. Then we got really pissed. Had a nice barbecue. All right. Then boys returned to there. We met kind of in the middle. So if I remember correctly, they came quite a distance. We did. Sound the boxes hanging in the trees and stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. Barbecue, couple whiskeys, beers. Oh god. And look, let's crash. It was a really windy night. Really windy. And the waves were crashing into our bank. And it's an artificial bank, I should say that too. It's like concrete. Goes in, and then the natural lake bed starts.
Right. Okay.
And we returned to our swim, went to bed. 10 minutes later, Jan was away. Nice 22 kilo, completely out of the blue.
Go on,
because normally the lake only does morning and daytime bites. No night takes we had. And all of a sudden we had a night take, like awesome, yay, big fish in the sling.
That's quality.
Celebration, like went back to back, but we didn't get much sleep because the waves keep hitting our lines and we get constant bleeps all night long. To the point where I took out my bobbins, right, and tightened up to the point where I thought I might have moved the lead, but I don't care. I just want to sleep. Right? Just a boat string tight, but we're only fishing like 15, 20 meters out, like casting, so baiting spoon distance. And in the morning, first light, I think Jan had a bream or something like that. And we said, should we redo the rods? Like, there's so much weed that collected in around. Yeah, okay, let's do that. We did both of his rods with a bait boat, dropping off at the shelf, again, half or one or two spoons of bait over it. And then we came to mine, and halfway out, the battery of the bait boat was empty. Couldn't get my rod out. So here we go again, right? Yeah. He was like, what we do? I said, just take the spoon and chuggle one out, and I will cast into the ripples. That will do. Right? We only have like 6 more hours to fish or so. That will do. All right. So Jan got in his waders. I aimed it. Worst cast in the world, but good enough. Short distance. Yeah. It will do.
Yeah.
Felled it down, rock hard on that shell. So it's sitting all right. I think we went back to sleep for an hour or so, and then we got on the coffee. Tim, who was one of the blokes fishing further down, came over for a chat, coffee, la-di-da. Oh, it was, and the bleeps kept coming because the wind was still crashing.
There,
Beep, 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 to the point where you are completely desensitized to it. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, it was a beep, 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 like, complete ripper. Like, and I was looking at Jan, so, oh, that's mine. Got up, start playing a fish. And the way the bank is made up there is it's also, like I said, there's terraces down in the water. There's also 2 terraces up, basically. There's a walking path for people really high up. Then there's where you could sit as an angler, which is then wilder, which is just like grass and stuff. And then there's the drop off into the lake, like I said, and then there's that terrace underwater. Yeah. And we are on that one terrace, and I'm playing the fish. Jan got in his waders because the fish kited so far to the left that I couldn't follow it.
Right.
And there's a lot of rocks in the water, and it's got really sketchy. So he got his waders on, took the rod, walked around these trees, and I met him in the next cutout, basically, to take the rod again. While I was playing it, I played a couple of decent fish there. Caught, I think, 1 or 2 over 25 kilo to that point the season
Decent.
Before. And I said, I'm not going to jinx it, but that feels like a really, really big fish while I was playing it. And Jan was standing in the lake, so he couldn't see. Tim, who came over to have a coffee, he got up on the path on top for the walkers. So he was standing like at least 3-4 meters higher than us. And I was just playing that fish. I had to stop playing it a couple of times because Jan had to clear weed from the line because the weed is so weedy. So I lost contact and kept playing it. And I played it. Jan was standing in front of me. He's a big bloke. So he was blocking a lot of my view, standing there with the net in the lake, ready to net it. I was just playing and hoping it stays on.
Come off, yeah.
And all of a sudden, Tim, standing back up, completely loses his mind.
What do you mean?
He just started saying, "It's him! It's him!
Oh, you don't
it's him!
hear that.
It's a big one! It's a big one!" Like hysterical. I still recollect it to this day. Right? He completely lost it.
You don't want to hear that playing the fish, do you?
You don't. No, you absolutely don't. But still, I kind of. It's when you're in emotion, like, and it was such an intense battle to this point. I was just in the zone, right? I just played it, and then Jan lifted the net at some point, turned around, pale, looking at me. I said, "Mate, it is him." I just remember, like, my knees got weak.
Yeah, God.
I dropped the rod, and I literally collapsed. Like,
yeah,
I had to sit down. And Tim ran down, and bless him, that is how awesome some people are. Like, he came and picked me up. He's also like, he's a bodybuilder type. Like, he picked me up and hugged me and said, "You did it, mate. You did it. It is him. You caught it, mate." I mean, that's the fish everyone is there for.
Yeah.
And he was more happy
than you,
by far. I was really in a whirlwind of emotions because I was just thinking of Jan.
Yeah.
If I wasn't there that day, there is every chance in the world he would have caught it. I didn't catch it from a swim, but like 5 meters next to it, right?
Yeah.
And Jan came out, Jan hugged me, and he was, again, also the how awesome these blokes were. Like, Jan, in a quiet moment, he came over and said, like, "Please understand, it hurts me a little bit." Yeah, I wish I hadn't caught it.
Yeah.
And honestly, that day, now with time passed, we all cool. That day, I wished it was just any other fish. I felt more guilt than joy. I didn't deserve that. I really didn't deserve that fish that day. And looking back, I would have loved to catch it from my swim, maybe 3 years down the road, or never at all. Till this day, that's my biggest fish that I ever caught.
What did it go?
32.6, 72, don't know.
It's just a beast, isn't it? And from that, I mean, it's a beast regardless, but from that type of water, I mean, I don't want to get all sort of spiritual and far too deep, but like there's a lot of things that align in captures like that. Let's face it, your probability is pretty poor, but to catch it in that circumstance, in a social that you didn't want to be at another swim on not a pub chuck, because it's not a pub chuck, it's over near some bait that's been put out on a certain area, but there's got to be something somewhere that's coinciding for those events to happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's too sort of random for it to be just coincidence.
And yeah, the great thing, how I came to peace with the whole thing is that the spring that year, I didn't mention it yet, another 30 kilo fish was caught. One that no one knew about. And this meant that because I don't know if I would have stayed on just to basically recapture the same fish to prove to myself that I can catch it from my own swim.
Yeah.
Maybe I was as stupid back in the days, and as stubborn also.
Yeah.
But I had another target to go at because now I knew there's something more. I mean, there were plenty of big 20 kilo, 25 kilo fish, but of course, the biggest one is now gone. You had it. But then I learned there's another one. So I had another mission. And the next year, or that winter, I started, or late autumn, I started to also fish my swim together with a friend to make it a bit easier. Because he couldn't only go the weekends.
Yeah.
He's a family man and big job, etc. So he could only do the weekend, and every other week he would do a night. Every other weekend. And I still could do 2 days midweek if I wanted to. So we shared the effort. Saying that, sorry, he lived much closer.
Right.
So it was much easier for him to keep the bait going and etc. And he would never done it. He was basically more like a casual carp angler.
Yeah, of course.
But that was his ticket.
Yeah.
To fishing a lake with somebody who already kind of figured everything out. It was like a win-win situation for both of us. And he caught the big one.
He caught the other
from our swim.
Did he?
So that kind of put everything to pieces with me. Even though I didn't catch it myself from my swim.
It has been caught out of your swim on your bait.
I knew
yeah.
I was on the right path.
Yeah.
I was absolutely on the right path.
So that was chapter closed?
Nah, I caught the other 30 kilo carp the next year from my swim.
Oh, so the 30 kilo fish that he caught was the same one you'd caught?
Yes.
So then you caught the other one?
Yes. And then he caught one, which for about 2 weeks we thought was the same one that came up in one spring.
Through.
And then I compared pictures and I realized, fuck me, this is the third one.
Jeez.
They look alike. They were like brothers.
Commons, mirrors, what are they?
Mirrors, all gnarly mirrors. But one had a scale sitting somewhere, a tiny scale, but it just wasn't present in the other fish. So
what a lake.
There's now 3 of them. And that what held me there for 4 years until I caught all 3 of them.
So you stayed on that Madden of a lake until you caught all 3?
In that one swim. I knew there was a mouse living in that swim. We called him Jerry, after Tom and Jerry. And after a while, it got like a ritual to give him
some boilies.
Yeah. Like basically, we treated him like a god. Like we made our condolences to Jerry, the mouse god, right? And always give him like boilies to eat and bring something for him. And he would come out, get it, and shoot back in. I knew every leaf in that swim. I knew every rock in that swim. After 4 years,
man, you're like full Tom Hanks Castaway, aren't you? On like your own little island.
Yeah. You know all the dog walkers. They know you. You it's home. And it felt really weird leaving. I could have stayed for the stock is one of the best ever in my area, at least. So I could just fish there forever. By now, all the fish I named are dead. But they're new ones.
That's some water, isn't it?
Yeah, it is one of those lakes who keep producing ridiculous sized fish. And still, I think there's 4 people fishing there.
But that is like your top percentage of carp anglers.
And one day I will I'm ahead of in the board of the club, but I haven't fished it for 6-7 years now. But I will. And
you love it, don't you?
They should fear the day that I put my foot on that bank again.
See if Jerry's still there, mate. See if he's still knocking.
But his sons, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Son of Jerry.
But like that is top 2%. I mean, in this country, I don't even think you can replicate something that's like that, if you like. But even in Germany,
that's rare.
That's an absolute gem, isn't it? But rock hard at the same time.
The funny thing is, I published this story in a book. A friend of mine wrote a book, and I published that story. There's so much to it. The second 30 kilo that I caught. The one that was caught the previous spring, that my friend caught the winter, and I caught it next summer. I caught it without a rod.
You caught it without a rod?
Because that year, the weed got completely out of hand.
Right.
And between the swim that I fished and the jetty I was fishing to, I remember I told that's the beginning of the out of bounds and also the shallow part of the lake. Between my spot was like 50, 60 meters out, not ridiculously far. There was so much weed that the line would run over the weed and then basically down to that spot. So what it meant was that year in the summer, when I hooked a fish, what I would usually tend to do is I would just play it in until it got choked in the weed.
Yeah.
Leave it there, open the bail arm, put my rod back on my rod pot, take one of the club boats who were like 20 meters to my left. So I would run there with a net, jump in one of the club boats, row round to my swim, pick up the rod, then go to where the weeded fish is, and then play it, net it, and get back to the bank, take pictures, release it, and put back the boat. Because you weren't allowed to drop rods from a boat on that lake. Till this day, you're not allowed to drop a rod from a boat. You have to cast or use a bait boat.
Okay.
I use the boat every time.
Yeah, I was going to say.
My swim is next to it. Of course you do.
Yeah.
Right? And everyone knew, because they would all have to sneak past me to get their boats to bait up.
But they're going to drop rigs.
No,
as
they
well.
couldn't. Because the distance from where the boats were to where they're fishing is like 500 meters or so.
So they've got
and
to
you're not allowed
back.
to leave them anywhere.
Ah, right. So they've got to
basically
go back.
also on that lake, you're not allowed to beach a boat.
You're not allowed to beach. So
Yeah,
you can't
to
take
drag
that,
it on land.
You can't take that to their swims then. They couldn't keep the boat.
No, exactly.
But you're right next to the boats.
Yeah, so I did.
Good angling.
And they all knew.
Yeah.
And I said, don't sneak on the jetty at 3 o'clock in the morning to pre-bait. I hear you anyway. At least pop in and drink a coffee with me. So we had this gentleman's agreement, which still to this day I'm missing that spirit of like hardcore anglers.
Yeah.
Respecting each other. And like I said, feeling for each other more than sometimes you would yourself. And I miss that to a degree. And but that day, again, got a take, played the fish, feel good. Got stuck in the weed. There was no way playing it through the weed. Impossible.
Yeah, solid.
Got in the boat with the net and started to row, like kind of parallel, because I was fishing like parallel towards these jetties from my swim.
Okay.
And here was the boats, and I came basically past where the fish must have been weeded. But that day, for whatever reason, I looked roughly where it was be, and I saw just a tail flapping. I said, was that my fish? Sure, it was a tench or something. I just saw a splash, not really making it. Rode one or strokes foot, and saw clearly a huge carp tail. And then just waves under the surface. Oh. That's my carp.
Yeah.
I don't know what struck me to not do what I always did. Going, grab the rod, and then go back out. Let's have a look. Don't ask me. What I did is I steered to the left, got there, and saw that 30-kilo fish sitting short under the surface in the weed. Just heads up. Tail up, head down, and just like going through the motion of being weeded. Just don't really realizing where it's at.
Yeah.
So I stood in the boat, like kept Nahab, just not with a spear, with my net, and just went down, scooped it up.
What a scoop that is. If that goes
unhooked
wrong,
it, and just rode back, reeled in my rig, which was then the easy part, just a little bit of weed on it. And had a 30-kilo carp in a net.
Mate, imagine if you go for the scoop and that goes wrong and it frees itself and you end up disgorging it or something with your net. Oh, my God.
That would be my story for the third one. The third one, it's a funny one. Not really, but I'm exposing myself to a degree. So what happened? Me and my matey had one of the rare socials that we did, where we fished together, which mean we would only put out 2 rods, or sometimes we would put out the other 2, but you would know it's pointless.
Yeah, of course.
It's weed to the horizon. Like you just chuck shots out
for sake,
for nothing. Yeah. But 2 on the spot, and then alternate takes. 2 takes a day was never seen, right? But we always said, like, we did like 2 or 3 socials in the 3 years that we fished together.
Yeah.
And we just knew who was last. Right? And funny enough, whenever we did a social, we caught.
Did you?
Yeah. And that morning was his turn. So the rod went, he picked it up, and the fish was under the jetty.
Oh,
quicker than we could react to it. So I got one of the club boats. We followed it, and you could clearly see the line goes under the jetty and probably out the other side. Happened quite frequently, but we adjusted to it because there were also like metal ropes going down from the jetty and being overgrown with mussels from the years being in the lake. We fished. That's also something. I think it's 100-pound braid.
wow.
It's 0.55 millimeter braid as mainline.
You're like arapaima fishing.
Yeah. Just for the abrasion resistant and direct contact because all of the weed, because mono had too much stretch. And then like 50, 60 pound mono leader. And straight to the clip. No messing around. And hook links made from the same mono. Like rainbow, kind of.
Proper gear.
So we saw it running down there. No need to panic at all. We had it figured out by then. What we did was we went to the jetty, parked the boat, would get out of the boat, basically.
Yeah.
I would always have a spool with a treble hook and a lead. Threw that out, got it back in, caught the line. You cut the line.
Oh.
Then you have to tie a knot with shaky hands.
No, I can't do that, mate.
I mess it up.
You're doing this.
Yeah.
So he's got the rod.
He's standing there with his rod, right?
You've cut the line to then reattach it.
Reattach it. Because by then, of course, you made sure the fish is not going. But like I said,
so
left from the jetty, it was mega shallow and mega weedy.
Okay.
So when we got there, the fish was always weeded.
I'm thinking you're doing this while the fish is trying to get away, but it's weeded up and it's static.
Yeah. You wait. You see for the line, nothing moves. There's a fair chance the fish is gone. Right? It could be. But usually they would just shoot into the weed and sit there.
What knot are you tying there? Back-to-back grinners? What are you doing?
The back-to-back granny, mate. the quickest. You could just pull on it. I mean, it's on the reel really quick anyway.
Yeah,
because then you get the boat round and you follow it. So it should play no. Just attach it somehow, right? Crimp it if it has to be. Just tie some kind of knot. Spool it up and then follow the fish to the weed and then play it. And he caught that last missing 30 kilo fish. The one like we just learned exist. He caught that. We had it over the moon together. What can be better?
Yeah.
I now put my hand on it. I knew that's my last tie. And we both gave each other the promise. None of us is leaving until we both had the 3 big ones. So he completed it. And remember, he was a casual. So he would have every right in the world to say, like, it's nothing in carp fishing for me anymore.
Yeah.
Good luck, mate. And he barely fished after that. But he kept baiting for me or with me. I did my share. He did his share. He always said, like, yeah, next week I'll probably go.
He never went.
Barely. Once or twice. But he completed it.
He's done.
He was done. More than he ever dreamt of. And yeah, that was it. Till this day, he is still carp fishing, but it's so much. That's what I mentioned in the beginning. So much aligned in these years there that you can't replicate.
Yeah.
Funny enough, a week later, and imagine we never caught that fish before. Right? We had repetitive captures by then because the stock wasn't massive.
Yeah, of course.
We're talking like 50 fish or so.
Yeah.
We had repetitive captures. Some were really friendly. Like basically, I caught the same fish twice as the first fish in a season and stuff like that. You could by then predict it, kind of. Like,
sure.
And they had character. You could make that out from a certain. Some would always come later in the year and stuff like that. One I had like 6-7 times It's just the most friendliest fish ever. A huge two-tone, awesome fish also. And yeah, he caught that fish. Funny enough, you can't write that. It's like ridiculous. A week later, I'm there on my own, having Tommy, my dog, for the first time. Like really just pup back then. Like one of the first times he was with me fishing. I get a take. Same thing. I feel like grating. So I knew like, okay, get in the boat. Don't even pull, right? Just let it go, because that's all. The further they go, the easier they are once they are out of the snack.
Yeah.
Than to try to play them through the snake. You lose them every time and probably damage the fish. But they shoot right through it. Right? It's just a jetty sitting on the surface and some cables going down.
Yeah.
So they don't even know what they are doing. They just shoot through the cables, but there's no chance to get them back through them.
Of course.
It's so much easier to follow them and much more fish friendly in the end, if you ask me. If you can wrap your mind around having to cut your line every third or fourth fish. I had knots all over my line.
I bet you did, yeah.
And but with braid that thick, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I went out with Tommy in the boat. First time he was sitting there in front of the boat, and it was that fish. So I recognized it straight away because it had a wound on the side from spawning. I think from spawning, because it was like midsummery and it was already healing, but quite a significant wound, which it hadn't the year before. I knew right away. I saw it in the water what fish it was, right? So the size and then that wound there. I saw you a week earlier. I knew exactly which fish it was. I netted it, brought it back, and then I did one of the things that it should have gone down differently than it did. So what I did then is I called my friend who I was fishing there with.
Yeah.
He was at work. I said, I got him. He said, all right, I'm coming. So I knew I had like 20 minutes or so. You imagine, he runs a company, he's working in a big company, but he has like 1,000 people working under him.
Jeez.
So really high tier German management thing in that company, like a gas fuel, like a daughter of Esso, like highest. So he came in his suit tie, shiny shoes to take
classy,
the picture. Yeah. So I knew I had at least 20 minutes until it comes. So okay, I packed everything away, right? Bed chair and stuff all already packed away. But I didn't put the fish in sling or anything. I just put the net over my rod pot. Right? I had the handle in the butt rest.
What are you doing?
I'm completely honest. I tell you what, I never told the story as honest as I do now. Right? You know what I wanted to do?
What did you want to do?
I wanted the water to clear up so I could take a nice picture for social media.
For the gram.
Yeah. What a whore I am. And what I did then is I thought, while I'm here, could already bait up. So,
but hadn't you done it though?
No, before I leave, I would always bait up.
Okay.
For the next 2 days, because then he would fish or I would fish, so it always had the turnover. Right. So we always bait up before you leave.
Right.
So then for 48 hours, no one has to do it. So I went out in the boat to bait up, which, like I said, it's not far away, like 50 meters, 60 meters to the swim. And all of a sudden I heard a commotion and I saw the rod pot tipping over.
I can't even look at you, mate.
But it was really shallow there, right? Not really shallow. The fish was sitting comfortable, right? Yeah. But I still thought like it must have landed in a way, that it can't get out.
Yeah, it can't get out. It would be
but the net was fully open, right? It was just sitting there. So I threw in the last bits of boil. There's no need in rushing now, right? So
yeah.
Rode back. Net is empty.
Oh.
So to express how you feel is nearly impossible. You just hate yourself. Because I know it was 100% my fault. And if anyone else would have told me that story, I would probably slap them around. And the call I had to make was call my friend who was on the way. And I said, it's gone. I said, nah.
I can't imagine. That's horrible.
The only thing I had was a quick flick I did. So I had a picture of it in the net in murky water, and I thought, that will look epic when it's clear, because the water there is general gin clear.
Yeah.
So that will look epic from... What a whore I am.
How has it got out the net, even if the net's fallen in there?
It must have fallen perfectly. Like, he made a rush, right? And I think it tipped that the cord just...
forward.
And it was just open gate for it. Right?
Oh, my God, mate. I would...
Yeah.
He went back to work, did he? Straight back. He didn't come.
Yeah, he didn't even come. Like,
yeah, I mean...
he was like, should I come? Don't take it the wrong way. I know I'm yeah. I don't want to see you.
Do not... Can you imagine being that bloke coming down and being, what do you say?
I just sent him the picture because if I hadn't taken that one initial picture in the net, of course he wouldn't believe me, right? He was like, what is he going through all of a sudden, claiming he caught...
What an age we live in, eh? It's not... It doesn't count unless you've got a picture on the gram. Yeah. But you've caught it, mate, technically there, so that's all right.
The story's not over there.
It's not over?
Caught it again a week later.
No.
No fish in between. Nothing. That fish came out 3 times in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Never before. And I would say never since, but that meant, I have to be honest, after that we left.
I bet, yeah.
I think it was caught once afterwards, and then it vanished. But it came out 3 times in 2 weeks. I caught it twice.
What was the emotion when you actually caught it the second time?
I cried.
Yeah. That is because the probability of that, you don't think that's happening.
No, I sat alone in the boat and shed a tear, honestly.
I'd be there with you, man.
Because I knew I didn't deserve it at all. I was never meant to have a picture with that fish because I blew it in the most stupid of all ways. A fish that many people would die for.
Yeah. Fish of a lifetime.
Yeah. And I just blew it for the gram.
You're that good that you had it twice in 2 weeks. That's mad, isn't it?
There's also no real excuse. The only excuse I can make is back then I was doing Pinpoint.
Yeah.
Right? I was running my hook sharpening company.
Yeah.
And it is a rat race. Right? You need content. And it's a bad excuse, I know, but I needed content.
Yeah, mate.
And that was an extra post, basically.
But you got a nice bit of closure catching it. Because you could still be fishing that for the rest of your living days.
Yeah. Saying that, no, that's actually not how it ended. I fished the next year there too.
Oh, you did?
But that's where all this underwater footage is coming from. The next year, I only fished it. I didn't have any specific... There was one fish I was missing. Fish we called the bull. And I gave that fish away once when I took a friend of mine with me on a day ticket.
Classic.
We had to take, like I said, it's only 2 rods fishing.
Yeah.
Right? So when I gave it to him, he lost the fish. And then, in theory, the next take was mine. But when it came 3 days later, we did a week. Two takes in a week. I can't take it. It's on you. And I said, just do nothing. I get the boat and we play it from the boat. And it was the bull. 27 kilo.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. They don't. The ones with names are not small in there.
There's not a lot. 27 kilos.
And that fish escaped me that was in the first year.
Right.
Yeah, it would have been my biggest fish on there till this day back then. Then I caught the big one and the follow-ups and etc. But this, I had that weird dream to catch
the bull.
But I learned quite quickly because of the camera and everything that came with it, placing a rig in 6 meter depth in front of a camera, blah-de-da, how the fish react to it. And
Yeah.
The last year wasn't easy. I caught a fraction, I think like 4 or 5 fish the whole season.
What's the fish that you get taken that we've seen on Nash TV? Or not Nash TV, it's on...
in one of the clips, I caught the bull in front of the camera.
Is it the bull?
Nah, that footage is not good enough.
No.
Because that day the water was quite murky.
Yeah.
I have the footage of hooking the bull in front of the camera, and I have the pictures with the fish, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting to that capture. But there's one of them in front of the camera that is repetitively shown on our social media.
Pink.
And it's a grey mirror.
Yes.
We called that one Gandalf.
How big's that?
22, 23.
It looks massive on that camera,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
It wasn't too... Yeah.
That is massive.
It wasn't too big. Yeah, it's a 50-pounder though.
Yeah.
But the bull, the day prior, the bull came in, fat, and left. I could see it on the camera. It's such a distinctive fish, the shape of it. It has it goes up from the head, like it has the biggest shoulder and neck. Then it drops off a little bit, and then it comes up again. And we called it the bull because it looks like you could put a saddle on there. Right? It looks like it's supposed to have a saddle sitting there behind its neck. Right? That's why we called it the bull. Because I saw it, it was one of the rare occasions where I went in next day. Normally, I would always leave the rest to swim for 1 or 2 days, at least, before I would fish again. But that day, I went in because I saw it. I made sure to be there next morning. I just felt like it's there. It's now in the area. Like there is a chance I catch it. So I went in, and all day nothing happened. I got cleared out by some bream, so I had to replace the rod, and the bite time had passed already, and so I was okay. What did you think, right? What did you think? If it was so easy. And then a guy I knew came over and we had a chat, and I had the camera turned off or the monitor turned off all the time. And then he was interested in the camera setup, and I said, here, and he turned it on, and we watched the hook bait just sitting there, nothing happening. And all of a sudden, a shadow moved in, and from the corner of we were chatting, and from the corner, so turned my head, and just the head moving in, and I said, it's him. It's him. I could see it from the shape. It's a bull. It's a bull. It's a bull. And it went straight down, straight for it. It's taking it. It's taking it. And I was at the rod before it bleeped once. Right. I could see the last thing I thought when I was basically shoot, and normally you took on weight, I just ran in with my socks.
Yeah.
Right? The last thing I saw from the corner of my eye was a fish coming back up, shaking its head. And I was at the rods before it bleeped once, struck it, and played it in. Right? And that's how I caught the ball. There's so many stories to that one lake and my time being there that I say it was the best time fishing of my life. And that's why I made the conscious decision of not to chase anything else anymore. As stupid as that sounds, but
you can tell just by how much life and passion is in your voice when you talk about it.
It is a book. I not have any plans of writing a book, but those 4 years there is
magic.
The best I have to offer. And so many stories that many people will never discover in their whole lifetime. And especially since the biggest fish always came with the craziest stories.
Yeah, there's not
a single one of the 30 kilo carp that doesn't come with a story in itself. Jeez. And if it's just like catching it without a rod, which in itself is a crazy story, but it's just one of for every one of them.
You got 4 of them, really?
Every one of them. And afterwards, I many people. I started to feel pressure.
Yeah,
people who wanted to get my swim, because we made it look so easy that then, and it's very organic, and I don't blame anyone for it, but some of the guys had a hard time, and then you put in the effort, but people never see it. I mean, they put in the effort too, but I can only speak for ourselves. We did put in the effort.
Yeah.
And we caught them all. And then it was kind of like you felt like a passive aggressiveness, even if it was never expressed to my face.
But
you had them now. You could fuck off, please.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because they all thought you can only catch them from that swim.
Yeah.
Because we caught them all from there. So I made the decision to leave. And it's nothing, there was nothing then repetitive captures from here on. I had them all. Everyone from the 18 from that lake. I said, okay, I will move off. I had nowhere else to go.
Where do you go from there?
Yeah, I made a very conscious decision while I was in the ends of it.
Yeah.
I already had announced that this year will be my last year. And I expected to move off without catching the bull. Kind of hoping that would be my trigger to come back one day.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I caught it. And then I really went in depth with myself. Because it was definitely close to a big chapter. Like I said, probably the best chapter of my life as an angler. Saying that I'm 40 years old, but still, I'm very realistic with that. Like, the stars only align once in your lifetime, at times. There's not said that I didn't have great fun on the bank since, that I didn't have mega stories to tell.
Yeah,
since.
Of course.
But yeah, you can't redo that. And so I thought, okay, what's next for me? Chasing the next 30 kilo fish? Which I did. I joined the club, but really quickly, after a couple of sessions, this is not the magic that I felt in another place. Like here, the people don't like each other. You get stabbed in the back. I got accused of things that I didn't do. All stuff that I didn't experience. And we broke every rule. And everyone was giving each other a high five for it. And there, I got accused of pre-baiting at night, which I wasn't even there.
I saw this on social media and it all sort of spill out and you put
it wasn't
up.
That story. Like there's countless stories like that in my lifetime.
I'll be quiet.
I mean, these high prolific lakes, you will know.
Yeah,
people, I mean, last couple of years here was the hormones and stuff. Like in Germany, it's pre-baiting at night and
it's
blah,
pretty
blah, blah.
cutthroat, yeah.
Some lakes, it all, again, it aligns and people are just cool with it. And we're all here for the same purpose, just keep your mouth shut.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And then some you have that one, it only needs one guy to really poison the environment at a certain water or something. He snitches to the club or calls somebody when whatever. Right? So I didn't feel it. I was there because I wanted to catch a 30 kilo common. Of course. I only had 3 mirrors, so I needed a common. But I felt really, nah, not under these terms.
Nah.
And then I sat down and talked to myself and I said, what am I going to do? If I keep chasing bigger and bigger and bigger fish from here on, I set myself up for failure. Or I end up as one of those, and sorry, not disrespecting anyone, pale lake anglers.
Yeah,
because after a certain size, you only get them in pale lakes, let's be honest. Right? Yeah. And then you have to become one of those, which I don't judge, but I judge.
yeah, but for you, that's not what you want to be.
It's not for me. No. I don't want to become that person just to catch a 38 kilo or 40 kilo, right? Not saying that I don't fish pale lakes. So if it happens, it happens. So in the end, I made a conscious decision to stop the record chasing. And what I did for the next year was catching up with all the friends that I neglected for more than 4 years. And lucky enough, most of them still answered my calls. And for nearly a year, I was fishing more socials than anything else. And I loved it, mate.
Yeah.
It's the banter, the rumors of the carp fishing sea. I was completely taken out of everything, kind of, right? And I just loved it. The company, how much a capture can mean if you share it. I mean, I was lucky enough to share some of that, but most of it, my record hunt, so to speak, was, alone, right, on my own path. But yeah, I loved it. And since then, it's kind of an in-betweener to me. Like I never tried to express it really, but if I would have to, I would say now I still love big carp.
Yeah.
Right? But big can mean a lot. If you give me a lake with some 20 kilo, maybe a 25 kilo in it, but I can fish that on my own terms or as close to what I like, which is boat work, loose rules, gentleman's agreement, some nice people, maybe not public in meaning that it is a fenced lake or something like that. Saying that, the fishing I enjoyed most since then was on a completely open public lake. But again, basically it was no rules, so you could use a boat, you could bait up, no one would snitch on you. I will now choose my venues based on different parameters.
Yeah.
Fish size has to be a given. There have to be some nice fish to fish for. Mm-hmm. But I would always neglect a 30 kilo carp, another 30 kilo carp in a lake that I don't enjoy fishing.
Okay.
Over a 50 pounder, 25 kilo fish, or some of them, in a lake where I can live my best life.
Yeah, where you've got that freedom element.
And enjoy my fish. That's what it's about nowadays for me. And, it's a good mix of solo missions, socials. Still, till this day, normally my big autumn campaign that I tend to do every year is done with somebody.
Yeah.
Ever since, I brought a couple of people to that style of angling, where I took mostly young blokes. Luke is my companion for a couple of years now, being roughly 10 years younger than me, and taught him how to fish, basically. I mean, he is the one to express that. That's why I'm not shy claiming it. He will always say that. I ramped up his knowledge in carp fishing, and now he's a better angler than I am. And I'm happy to admit that. Because he is where I was.
Yeah.
That was my peak.
You don't think you can have another peak?
Depending on who you ask, I'm still peaking. But
I wouldn't say that you're past your peak. I'd say I don't think there is.
Me neither, but it's not the tunnel vision, do whatever it costs.
Is that a peak or is that just one aspect? I reckon there's more facets to you than you give yourself sort of credit. I know what you're saying in terms of
only in this big fish hunt, no matter what the cost is. Neglect friends. Don't do whatever it takes. I don't have that anymore. I don't want that anymore in my life.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to do it on my own terms. And I'm sure I will stumble across another 30 kilo carp in my lifetime. But if not, I've been there, done it. It's all good. Yeah. I want to enjoy my fishing. And don't get me wrong, 50 pounders are good enough.
Yeah, I'll take a few 50s.
Saying that, 50 pounders, some of the German 50 pounders would be considered a UK 60. So I was still fishing for 60 pounders then.
Why do you think that German carp are not infinitely, but bigger? You said the climate where you're from is pretty similar to the climate we've got here.
Yep.
So why do they grow bigger? The strain of the carp?
Possible.
Natural food?
It would, yeah, I would make that argument, actually.
You'd say there's more natural?
I don't know. I have absolutely no clue. I would love to speak to a real carp expert in it, like a fish breeder. I don't know, pH levels maybe of the spring water here, or I don't know. I mean, calves lakes must be, how do you call it, groundwater?
Spring fed.
Yeah. Does this island have a different pH level than the continent? I really don't know.
But there is, which is interesting because you referenced it, is that the north of Germany, the fish are generally smaller than the south, which is pretty. I mean, again,
it's a bit colder up there. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Then also, I think just bigger, deeper lakes produce bigger fish,
and
they always have.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if you look, where's the biggest public lake fish come from? Lac du Der.
Yeah.
It's a huge lake. It's not the deepest lake, but I think there's various factors. And if they align in the right way, the lake that I mentioned, for example, it's really deep.
Yeah.
And gin clear, like today is murky. I don't know. I can't
It's interesting,
tell.
isn't
but
it?
a certain size, and I think the stock of fish can't be too big. They need room, literally.
Yeah.
Like it's like an aquarium. You can't breed a 60-pounder in an aquarium. No matter how much food you give him, he will
They grow to their
adapt.
environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a 2-acre pond, or let's call it lake, I think if you squeeze one fish in there, it can get really big.
Yeah.
The moment you put 10, 20 in there,
Different ball game.
I think, I mean, I'm really talking out of...
Yeah, it's interesting. It's just interesting to sort of contrast both. You referenced it again when you were talking about the lake and in amongst your captures. You were talking about Pinpoint, and the story of Pinpoint has been well documented through sort of Nash. I got some hooks from you when you were Pinpoint. I can't remember what pattern they were. They're a wide gate pattern, and I used them on some zigs and caught very nice fish at Eric's. They were spot on. I remember getting them and thinking, geez Louise, because you thought you were sharpening them, but when you sharpened them and sent them back, different ball game, mega. How did you manage to balance that, the sort of formation of that, the work, the branding and everything else that went into it, as well as the all-encompassing fishing?
Looking back, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's when you're in the motions of doing it, you sometimes do stuff that looks impossible from the outside. But in regards to fishing, I can tell you, because like I mentioned before, on that lake, that is that time frame. That is that period of my life where this all came together. I just founded Pinpoint. I quit my job.
What did you do before Pinpoint? I didn't ever know that.
That is not that easy to describe. I was the guy, when you go to court.
Oh God, here we go.
I was the bloke who brings in the prisoner.
Was that you? No.
Basically, under
The unit.
under every German court, there is like a mini jail.
Yeah.
Because in the morning, the jail brings the bad guys.
Yeah.
And then you bring them up. You make sure that they don't run. Sometimes you also make sure no one from the families wants to stab them or whatever.
Can you talk about any interesting cases there?
Murder.
Like, no, as in like people trying to get at prisoners and things? Did you have to do
Not
any?
freeing them, but killing them, yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
What, you
yeah.
had to stop them?
Or gypsy families going after each other
Wow.
after a failed marriage and stuff like that.
Oh, this is a different book and a different podcast. We need to get on true crime.
For hours. Yeah.
Quality.
Or prisoners getting brought in the car, getting out of the car and just greeting me by name because they're all friends of mine.
All right, mate.
Finally, it's one of us. And all my colleagues look at me. It's like, yeah, skip that one of us part. At least while we're here.
It's just a job, all right? I need to get paid and I need to go fishing. And then, and then the hook business in terms of doing it. Were you doing it actually on the bank?
No.
Nah.
I had a stationary setup at home that I built. Frankenstein of a machine is what I always called it.
Yeah.
I put together with all kinds of components. Made my own setup there. The fishing, again, it all fell aligned. You could never replicate it.
No.
Where
Perfect storm.
I told you before, that lake did only daytime bites. That fish Jan had in that one night is one of 2 or 3 fish caught at night during the 3 years that I've been there. Wow. All other fish came first light until noon. 1-ish was the latest usually that you could get a bite in the afternoon. So the first 2 years I fished the nights, never caught anything except from bream, and I full hooked the eel once on a shot.
Good angling. You like an eel, mate, don't you?
Sharpened hooks, though. Right? Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things that also showed me, like, Jesus Christ, that thing just swam past your pop-up and hooked itself.
Where did you first hear about sharpening, or where did you pick it up from?
Jim Shelley.
Was it Jim Shelley?
Yeah, in an article, I think, in Carpology.
Yeah.
Correctly.
So you've basically taken it on from there, formulated that machine in Pinpoint.
I did it by hand. I bought stuff.
Yeah.
Tried it. And maybe that is the the bit of German in me.
That is classic, isn't
Where
it?
quite quick, there must be more efficient way than doing it with a file and your fingers. So I started to try around with machinery.
How did that then?
Bought everything in the hardware store, tried, returned it the next day, said it's broken, sorry, need my money back. Bought something else, tried, failed. Every kind of grinding machine, drill, everything, until I found something that worked.
So how did that then get from that, obviously the end of your fishing chapter, but how did that get from Pinpoint to Nash? To Nash Pinpoint?
During the not the last year in front of the camera, the year before.
Okay.
That January, I keep that sweet and short. René, who was a sales rep for the company, German guy, I knew him for years back. I went to Swallow with my Pinpoint stand. Nash was there, obviously. So René had bought hooks for me, gave me a Nash account so I could purchase Nash hooks because I was selling quarter. First, foot in the door was first branded hooks that I got were.
I had some Fox hooks.
Fox hooks.
You did Fox hooks.
Then quarter and then Nash hooks and then ESP and so on.
Okay.
Gardner. But it was important to get one or two companies to sell to you because in the beginning the companies were seen as an offense. Basically, you saying our hooks are not sharp enough.
I'm gonna.
So I've written a letter to Quarter and them saying, "Nah, you're getting it all wrong. I am AMG. You are Mercedes.
Yeah, exactly.
Not everyone wants to drive an AMG.
No.
Not everyone can.
Yeah.
Not everyone should. So there is no competition. Right? This is for a really selective amount of people, and it's still built on your cars. To stay with that reference, because your cars are awesome. Like AMG doesn't say Mercedes is shit.
Exactly.
You take something that is awesome and just turn it into something special. And special usually means it's not for everyone. And that's how I described it to these brands. And once I had Fox and Quarter to sell me hooks, basically everyone wanted to sell me hooks. Because then it switched and everyone wanted to be in my store because it got so hyped and the Pinpoint brand got so out of control so quickly. It got such a hype. And, and then René came over with Alan. Alan took a look at the stuff, ruined some hooks by tapping him on his nail on my stand, and I was it took me hours to make. Invited me over to meet Kev, which in hindsight also is something really special. Obviously, being here for the first time is special. Meeting in there, seeing Kevin Nash. Sorry for swearing, but for fuck's sake, man.
What was that like?
As a little boy, 13 years old, I walked into that shop and saw these boilies sitting there, the flavors on the shelf, and it's ridiculous. Could choke up on it right now.
Yeah.
And then knowing them now so much better and so intensely now, calling them friends without making it cringy, like friends. They spend the whole day with me in Kev's office talking about Pinpoint, about myself most of the time, and knowing what that means now. And you know, Al.
Yeah.
You know Kev.
Yeah.
They spend the whole day on me, just chatting with me. You can't buy that, literally. You can't buy that for money, I guess. I mean, there must be a price for that time, but...
Quite a lot, though, wouldn't it?
I mean, nowadays, if you and me would ask for a day to sit and chat to them, they would...
You get half an hour.
Are you mental, mate? Right? So they spend the whole day until the late afternoon chatting with me. And in the end, basically, I mean, I hope I give that right, get that right. Basically, in the end, Kev said, I still don't know about these sharpened hooks, man. If there's something you should sell on a large scale, if it sells on a, etc. We were going about that. Is there a partnership maybe? And Kevin Ian said, his hooks are all good and that, but during this conversation, who does your artwork? I said, I did. Where do you have this product? Because I was selling devices and who sourced that? I said, I did. Yeah, who did you have clamshell blisters? It looks very professional. Who sourced them? I said, I did. And in the end, Kev said, like, forget about the hooks, man.
Yeah.
Someone with your mindset.
Exactly.
I want you to work for us. I put a number, like that movie moment, kind of.
Classic.
Right? Put a number on a piece of paper.
We trebled it in your head first, then put a number on a piece of paper.
Now, what I did is actually, I said, I'm not doing this today. I went home and I sent, if I remember correctly, I sent over my turnover numbers.
Okay.
Because I had a point to prove here. I said, you won't pay me what I make now.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't. Because it is apples and oranges.
Yeah, okay.
Right? I made money.
Yeah, mate.
But-
I paid 14 quid for a bag of hooks, mate. They caught me some fish
rightfully so.
They caught me.
But I made a lot of money during that time, but I was stressed out, lost my sleep, lost everything about it, kind of.
Yeah.
I was afraid because by then I got wind that Corda's working on something. Because Kamakura hooks wasn't yet.
Yeah.
And I had to fear, if they bring out these hooks, I'm done. It's Corda. I'm done. So, and I was really open with them too. And I said, like, listen, I'm German. I'm not on a bazaar here, right? I don't say a number so you can say a lower number, and then we all like shout at each other. And then I don't want to do this dance. I want to explain to you why I came up with this number.
Yeah.
So see, this is what I made the last 4 months. It is a lot, but I'm not happy.
Yeah.
I maneuvered myself in a position where I had to sharpen hooks 8 hours a day, which is horrendous work, mate.
Yeah.
I popped the disc in my neck over it, sitting like a gargoyle.
That's not the one, is it?
No, with a mask, because there's this metal dust going through the room. It was everywhere. It wasn't fun. The only great thing, the success feels great. Seeing it spiraling out of control.
Yeah.
The names in my, I won't name drop now, but the names in my inbox from Europe, England, the biggest of names.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And you felt just the achievement. That feels great. But I maneuvered myself in a position where how can I, the next logic steps would be invest all my money trying to fully automatize this with absolutely no guarantee that it ever works out.
Big gamble, that, isn't it?
Who knows what happens when Corda releases their sharpened hooks, which I knew back then was coming. Hire people. Will anyone put in the same effort like I do? That's what I always said. If your only argument for buying my product is the quality of the product, because the hooks are still the same, right? Pack of hooks is 5 quid. Mine are 12, 13, in the end 40. I made them more expensive so people stopped ordering. So I
think I was paying 14 quid for a...
I raised the price every 6 months or so to lower the amount of orders.
But like you say, if you take you out of that equation...
Yeah, if I let you do it and you have an off day, right? Don't know, like stress with the missus or something. Sharpening hooks for that.
If you did it, me on a
guy
good day.
Mark can't stand the blow. It's not perfect. Fuck him. Yeah. That customer picks up that pack for 14 quid, and 2 hooks out of 10 are not perfect. That's your brand gone. In nowadays with social media and stuff, that's your brand finished in an afternoon, basically. So it was so hard. I talked to a lot of people also. But in the end, yes, to cut a long story short, I could waffle on for this for ages. I sent Kev a number. I said, just so you understand, I'm willing to pass on a lot of money that I'm doing right now for the safety of a job.
Yeah.
Right? A monthly fixed income is, again, once you always want what you can have, right? You want the freedom of self-employment, then you're missing the fixed income, right? And so on and so on. But I dabbled into that now. I know I can do it. I think I did something quite special, actually.
Yeah, 100%. But you want some balance.
Yeah, and then the opportunity they gave me to run Germany.
Yeah.
Do something with that. And I saw so much potential there because, again, you have to make up your mind where media was back then. It's not that long ago, 5 years now or so.
No, but lots happened, hasn't it?
Yeah. Germany had an Instagram channel, I think, with 3,000 followers or something. My own channel was bigger, I think. My Marc Voosen channel was was bigger, and everything was shit in Germany. There was no videographer, no German content at all. Anything that happened in Germany was due to Alan doing Eurobank's videos in English. And that only speaks to a fraction of the German market. Yeah. Even though many Germans speak or understand a bit of English, sitting through an hour-long video is something different.
Well, you can trust it the other way. Like if you had German content that was just in German, I don't think many of the UK Anglos would be watching that.
Yeah. Back then, they did because there was also, the content was limited.
Yeah, of course.
So you would even sit to something that you don't understand just because it was, you would feel it to a degree.
Yeah.
Yeah, but since then, a lot of things, you can't even watch everything that is released now. But yeah, I was given a blank canvas or offered a nice salary, a blank canvas, and the trust of these two icons. Do what you think. I shit my pants, not gonna lie. But it also felt like, whoa, how did I deserve that? It comes close to catching that big and twice in a week. Right?
Does it?
I speak to, like I say, I call them, I consider them friends now.
Yeah, definitely.
And I've spoken to Alan more than one occasion really openly about imposter syndrome. Where you often, I am that kind of person. Like oftentimes you feel like they see something in me that I'm really not. You know what I mean?
I don't, because I know you, mate. You're Hollywood, mate.
That's what he says at times, but still, sometimes you think like
you shouldn't be carp fishing, Voosen, should you really?
I don't know. I love it.
Shouldn't be carp fishing has gained a lot for like you are Hollywood when it comes to carp fishing. Looks, decent hair, catch big fish, charismatic. It's a lot, mate, there. But it's, yeah, mate, I think everybody sees that in you. I don't think anybody...
I don't know. I think everyone sees them because you know your flaws. You know your dirty little secrets. You know where you missed out on opportunities, where you fucked opportunities, where you ruined chances. Right? Or let's keep it there. You know your flaws. Everyone has them.
Yeah, of course.
And I know mine. And so then for people that you look up to, to consider you worthy, I dealt with, till this day, I sometimes deal with that, where I think like, did I do enough today to justify that? Right? And then by now I come to terms with that I know I will never get rid of that.
Yeah.
I accept it as that is what drives me. For example, I was alone in Germany, right? No one checked how much I work. Till this day, they don't. Right? So I am that person that if you give me that freedom, I will probably work more.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I feel
that I
need to prove that your trust is worthy. I'm worthy of it. Where others, if you leave them loose, they just fuck it up.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is where I am at today. Right? And it is still shifting because, as you know.
You've done a lot, mate. Well, even the pinpoint thing, I mean, the hooks, when the range was released, I remember meeting you down here when you'd first come sort of in.
You've been here for, you basically, I had to talk you through right when you've been here with AD, right?
Yeah, that was right. And you were like,
shit my pants.
You were fresh. You were good, mate. I was like, geez, if you took
because it came unannounced. I walked in here for something. Yeah, can you quickly walk our biggest customer and Hassan, which I knew from media, through this range of hooks that you did? And I said, And the sharpening tools.
And the sharpening tools, yeah.
They're good.
He was a classic. I think you've been absolutely washed into a room by Kevin and just it landed. But you did well, mate. And I remember thinking, if I was in Germany and somebody asked me to describe whatever, I'd be absolutely gone, mate. You weren't, mate. You did a great job. You were like absolutely spot on. It was very comprehensive. But even then, you could see the improvements that you'd made with regards to patterns. That was when like the claw was first seen and everybody was like, ugh, like the instant reaction was like, what is that all about, mate? It's an absolute shocker.
Best-selling pattern now.
Best-selling pattern at the moment. So it's that sort of engineering and
which I have to give to Alan.
Yeah?
We sat on a couch and we're looking at it, at the pattern. And we had, basically there were 2 patterns to choose from. Standard white gape.
Yeah.
Everyone is selling, but you need it in your range. Or a white gape with a kink. Because in the end, the claw is nothing else.
Yeah.
But I mentioned what the manufacturer had told me before and the testing, and that actually when it penetrates till this kink, it prevents cutting. And therefore, at least in theory, and it should in practice also, you should lose less fish on the long run. Not not even 1 out of 10 necessarily, but on the long run, it should at some point add up. You will never know. That's also the truth.
Of course you do.
But the hook holds of the claws speak for themselves. So many customers come back and say they sit. If they sit there, they ain't going nowhere.
No.
And of course, people will have lost fish on the claw. It's not magic, but that kink does something. It compresses the flash, and therefore it gives a better hook hold and less wiggle, and therefore less cutting, less fish.
Yeah.
And we sat there, and should we risk it or not? And because again, I was afraid to do something wrong. Probably if it would have been on me, I would have gone the safe road.
Yeah.
But Alan being Alan, like, nah, let's do the crazy one, right? Like, let's shock him.
It worked. It's a gamble, mate. I just remember the first initial thing, people thinking, what is that all about? And then, as you say now,
is it by now, since I understand the trade a bit better and everything, when you see the first copies of the design.
Yeah.
That's
when you've made it.
When I sit at home, instead of being like, well, the copy, it's like,
cheers, boys.
Yeah, you owe me one.
Yeah.
You owe me one.
And then handling Germany, as you say, media-wise and handling Germany, like the job you've done there, mega, mate. What's next? What's next for you?
Currently, it seems like there is a shift. I mean, as you know, this brand is going crazy for the last couple of years. And I think it's also something that I expressed really early during a long night where Al and I chatted on a bank once on a German lake. Where I said, Al, if I do my job right and we're going in the direction that we are dreaming of, which basically came true in all regards.
Yeah.
I make myself obsolete really quick. I think back in the days I said 5 years, which I think would be next year then. Because I said by then we will need somebody for sales who studied business. We will need somebody for the marketing who studied.
Specialist
I think
in that area.
I am running everything with passion, heart, a bit of fear of fucking it up, and common sense. I just see things and think, yeah, of course, we should do it this way. And I'm right a lot of times, luckily, because I could absolutely be wrong. But I just think, I look at stuff at times and think, yeah, of course, we do it this way. And luckily, I'm not always right, not at all, but often enough so people forget the times where I'm wrong. But we are now getting there, mate. I have to be honest. I could still wing it for a couple of years, but I would, and this is what Alan and I agreed on, we don't want to be the ones that they chase out of the companies one day. We want to go on our own terms. And that doesn't mean I'm leaving the company, but I see it as my job to bring in better people than myself for what this job that I did for the last couple of years has now become. And this is why Alan is now, and again, the amount of trust is not justified, but they are now starting to teach me and hand me little projects, or might, if it works out and if I get it right and don't blow it, make a transition into product development. And it's a super interesting topic. I will not be lost for the German market, obviously.
Yeah.
I might even be overseeing the maybe 2 people that we might put in place there, or 3 or 4 or 10 or whatever we put in place, the new structure. I don't want to be considered as their boss or anything, but I just want to, like is there a veto, right?
A veto, right? Yeah, of course.
Where if I, with my common sense, think,
say no.
I think that goes in a horrible direction, guys.
Yeah.
Like, I want the right to raise my hand and say, can we stop? Please, let's all get together and fill me in. It doesn't feel right to me. Right?
See, that's where I think yourself and people who's experienced and have done as much as you are invaluable, regardless of things moving on. You said there that there's a need for somebody in marketing to have a marketing degree, somebody in product development to have a product development degree. Fishing is very so unique, and the amount of wealth you have in terms of your network and what you've done, that overall what you see as common sense is so hard for somebody who's got a marketing degree and not had the fishing background to then try and morph into. So I've seen it, and I think that even though you don't see it as a skill and you see it as common sense because you've been in and around fishing, that for anybody who's got qualifications is so hard to learn. Whereas somebody who's got good fishing knowledge and experience and has been around in a good network, you can learn to a certain extent the marketing skills to get around stuff.
To me, it's a yin yang.
Yeah.
Like I said, I won't go to uni and get a business degree. So, you have to admit to yourself. Numbers scare me since day one. Like, I'm horrible at math. I don't like it. I really don't like it. If anything, I'm more the marketing side of things. Yeah. I know I always said that if I do my job right in marketing and the product is good, sales follow. Yeah. I don't want to do the math and margins, and you kind of have to in product development, at least roughly. Right? Yeah, you can't just design a rod, which is then
£10,000 for a blank.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So, of course, you have to. But that is simple math, really. Right? What does it cost us? Trade and customer. That is not hard, right? But when it comes to shops and deals and it's not me. Right? It's not me.
Fair.
Like I think what I can do quite well is make people feel that I am passionate about something because I don't hold it back.
Yeah.
I'm really honest, sometimes more than I should. And I love fishing.
Yeah.
It's the only thing I ever gotten really good at in life, if I'm honest. And really good to that you could say I'm top tier, so to speak.
Yeah.
In something. I don't have anything else to show. And again, once in my life, the stars aligned where I don't know how I deserve it, but everything in my life led to each other, and that brought me here. Right? So it is ridiculous.
Take this podcast out of it. This is the rubbish bit, but the good bit out there, you've done a great job, and of course you deserve it because it doesn't happen if you don't deserve it. Things like what you've achieved, both in fishing and with the stuff you're doing and will continue to do with Nash. You don't get them by accident. They don't fall on you, mate. So you need to...
But you're 100% partially right. And I look at... that might ruin everything I said before where I sounded really humble. But I look at a lot of people and think like, you're only using 10% of your potential. Jeez, how can you lie to yourself so much to claim you're not wasting your life? Really, right? Because you can do so much more, which doesn't always mean the hours, but usually it goes hand in hand, if you're honest.
Of course.
Like the amount of hours I put in for Pinpoint, for example. Right? Then, again, the fishing followed up where I would only do day sessions. Like I said, it was only morning bites. So instead of going there in the evening and sleeping there, I would spend that time on the missus, take her out to dinner, sleep next to her, and everything that goes along with that. And then setting an alarm for 3 o'clock in the morning to be at the lake before first light, put the rods out, and have 6 hours of fishing time to hunt my 30-kilo carp, pack up at 1 o'clock, go home, and have another 6 to 8 hours of hook sharpening.
Jeez.
Right? That is more than many people would be willing to do.
Yeah.
I don't know, on the other hand, if I could do it again. It would be easy for me to claim, of course, you have that mindset, like, but that's why sometimes certain things only align once, where you have that energy, you have that drive, you have that focus. You may be also a stubborn C word, right?
Yeah.
So, and now I'm a bit more relaxed. I'm a bit wiser, maybe also.
Who knows? But at least you've done it.
Yeah. And I mean, still, I got a lot of drive for a lot of projects.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could redo it.
You don't need to make.
Or watching somebody else. If I would watch myself doing it now, if I wouldn't shake my hand and say, "Oh, mate, it's all not worth it. Just relax a little bit."
Chill, mate.
But it's also not. I love like going through these thoughts and
deep thinker, mate, aren't
the philosophy about it and etc. On the other hand, sometimes you just have to shrug your shoulders and say, like, it's not like we could change it. All right,
No.
Accept it how it is, how it gotten. I still feel I'm an incredibly lucky man. Much more than I feel, and I can't change that, I deserve. So I try to live up for it as good as I can, because I feel many people would chop off their left leg to walk in my shoes. And even I'm not willing to do that. I still feel I have to prove that I'm making half of the chances I was given and handed.
Yeah.
And handed, I was literally, like, I mean, without them two there, who knows where I would be now? Who knows? Could be, literally, who knows?
Whatever you were doing, you'd be smashing it back.
Maybe I would have more money. Maybe I would, but who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not worth thinking about it.
No, definitely not.
Sometimes it's fun to at least elaborate on thoughts, etc. But wherever you end up with that, being happy or unhappy, I think maybe I had more potential. Just in the end, shrug your shoulders, look at what you got, and hopefully you go to bed happy.
Yeah.
Which also, no matter how gifted, how lucky, how happy you are, everything that you have on a daily basis becomes standard. And even working for Nash at some days suck. where not everything that I do on a daily basis is fun.
Yeah, of course.
But that just goes along with it. The amount of fun that on the other hand comes with it.
Yeah.
And the freedom to express yourself, and having these knowledgeable people who build something so big, listening to what you have to say, not brushing it off, listening, really listening, asking you for advice at times. I think it is more than I could have hoped for in life. And I'm a really happy man.
One section before we give you your last questions, mate.
Please.
UK fishing. I know you haven't done a great deal, but you have done some time on bluebells.
Yeah.
When I say some time, you did 1 week for the social. 1 week. And you fished with Lou Porter.
I did.
Big love, Lou. If you're listening to this, what a guy.
Probably my most enjoyable fishing.
On angling projects.
Yep. Awesome place, awesome people.
Overall, out of those two experiences, you caught a 40-pounder from, was it 30-pounder from Swan at Bluebells, did you?
If I now tell you that, I have no clue how.
I think it was. I can't remember on the video.
It was a beautiful fish. That's what I can tell.
Caught a good one anyway on Swan. Yeah. But as overall, your UK experience of very, very small experience that you've had of the UK scene, how does that compare, or how does that sit with you in terms of the other angling you've done in Germany? Because obviously it's vastly different.
It is so different. It's another world. And what we touched up on, I will give you a couple of bullet points that are a bit controversial. But what I would love to express is what also being around the block kind of now, right? Fishing all over Europe and stuff.
Of course.
And, carp fishing, and I said that earlier, but I want to elaborate a little bit on it. Carp fishing can mean so many things to so many people. There are people I know in Germany who don't fish in Germany anymore because they're sick of that club scene and the politics and the waiting lists and everything, and all the restrictions also. They book their 4 weeks off work and go to the big public lakes of France. Then there's guys in Germany that they went back to the rivers. They enjoy the freedom of the rivers. They can't be bothered to sit on a lake anymore. Then I know guys who went down the road that we discussed earlier. They only fish pay lakes, and only those prime ones there where the biggest fish swim. Fair play. And then there's it's also disrespectful, the average Joe who goes out every other weekend because he has family commitments, maybe a business to run. And every other week he manages to sneak out for a night and has to fight for that with his family, with his wife. And maybe then he always goes with his friend and a couple of beers, and they go in the easy swim where they can nicely sit next to each other, get the barbecue on. It would be easy for me to bash on that. I'll say like, I mean, I did it earlier. We have our words for them, right? The weekenders and at some point we called or a certain style of unexperienced carving we call bingo bongo for whatever. This is just terms, the bingo bongos.
I love a bit of German slang.
Not really, but it established itself at some point. No, but all that, it is not on. Do I judge people? Yes, but it's not on me to express my opinion about anything. Who am I? To say what's wrong and right. And I change my mind about what's wrong and right so often in my life, in all kinds of life, but also in carp fishing. Like I say, at one point, everyone not fishing for 30 kilo carp on their own, not talking to other anglers for months on end, was like, you are one of those. Right? And now I look back and think I was a fool, kind of. It was probably necessary to come to where I'm at now.
Yeah.
To have done it. So I don't know where you are on your way. And I don't know what the end goal is. Because I'm turning 40 soon in March. In a couple of years, I might be very welcoming of the comfort of a pay lake. It's an absolute possibility. I get annoyed recently. My last couple of trips to France weren't that pleasant. Because it's more and more people going.
Yeah.
And then you have to drive. You can't just say, we're going to this lake, public lake, and fish there. You have to have a list of 3 or 4 or 5. So hopefully find something. So who knows?
But the UK is that times 10.
Yes, it is. But it's not the fault of the people.
No.
It is the circumstances. Too many anglers, too little lakes.
Yeah.
To the point where people start to dig new ones, which is to me that's completely alien to me.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah,
like you don't just dig a lake and 1 year later you call it so and so lake, and basically you dictated where the features are and what reeds are growing on the bank. It's not wrong. It's just alien to me.
Yeah, of course,
completely alien. And again, why? Because I'm a nature of my upbringing. The lakes that I fish all existed. They didn't exist in the lifetime of my granddad, so he would have a different perspective than I do.
Yeah.
Right? He would say, I remember when there was no lake. I can only remember there was a lake. Right? So I can't detach myself enough to see how ridiculous everything is that I'm feeling.
Yeah.
I still feel it, though.
Of course.
And I think to now give you a couple of nice bullets point, they're a bit controversial maybe. Having seen a lot and lived a lot, fished a lot, I think people here, by the nature of things, are missing out on what an adventure carp fishing can be. When it's you against the creature, then it becomes a hunt. I mean, I guess you can also still experience that at lakes. I mean, look at Jim Shelley, for example, just to pick one. Look at Alan. They are still hunters.
Yeah.
Most people aren't. Let's be honest. They claim. Same in Germany, though. Most people just, if you would ask them why you are in this swim, because I caught you before. Right? Or if you would ask them, what bottom are you fishing over? I cast.
Yeah. It's out there.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's levels to it, to carp fishing. That doesn't mean just because you approach this, and let's be honest, it is your pastime, right? Your hobby.
Yeah.
Just because you approach this hobby a little less intense than I do, it doesn't mean you are less than me. It's just less intense. Maybe you're actually getting more out of it because you probably enjoy it also when you're blanking. Well, I beat myself up because I shouldn't blank. I know I have everything in my arsenal to not blank. And if I do, I knew I did something wrong. And sometimes I think it's freedom to not reflect that much on it because it's a hobby.
Yeah, exactly.
Do that on your work, mate. Do that on your family life. Right?
Yeah.
Then also you can say how you do anything is how you do everything. I do everything pretty intense.
Yeah.
That's just me. And I'm absolutely relaxed. And at these shows, for example, you meet so many people at various stages of carp fishing, knowledge, what they think is right, cool. And now I'm at the point where I love them all. I'm not annoyed anymore. Sometimes it can be annoying, let's be honest. Right? But I think don't listen to anyone. Make it, own it. Own your hobby.
Yeah.
Own your carp fishing. And you decide what is right. Whatever feels right for you. Don't let anyone tell you that the style of fishing that you do is bad or not good or not technical enough. Or if you enjoy that, do it.
Yeah.
It's the only thing there is. And what people have to do over here to catch carp is just far detached from what it is in Germany, which to me looks alien again. And it is more you against the other anglers than you against the creature. And what I learned from fishing here is, and just to say, of course, I'm exaggerating. I'm making broad statements.
Yeah.
Some people might have completely different experience here fishing unknown lakes or
it's the experiences
abandoned lakes or whatever, right? But I'm making broad statements because you can't always go into every nitty-gritty exceptions of the rule. So I'm making broad statements here. Most people here have to fish against other anglers. You have to look which swim is free instead of where's the fish. And the fish here also don't behave like fish.
I was going to say the pressure on them. Yeah.
Yeah. Bluebell as an example. When I arrived at Bluebell, I completely fell for it. I fished really bad, looking back, because I thought I have to fish English. So I tried to gather all the information I could up front, which is good. You should always do that. But then I looked at the weather forecast. Where's the wind blowing? How is that related to Swan Lake? And then that one corner, in theory, should be where you want to be, from my experience as a carp angler. I thought I should get in there. All right, arrived. That swim was taken. So I thought, can't be bothered, really. Just go to the top end then. Right? No one's there. There's a big willow overhanging. And I thought, if I was a carp, it's the only overhanging tree on the lake, kind of. Or it's it's reaching really far. It has like a nice canopy. Just chuck one under there and one somewhere and wait, because I spoken to the guys fishing there and I said they will leave the other day or so. I thought, all right, then spend the night here. Just to go through the motions. So everyone was spombing and being really accurate. And you have one lesson also that I learned in life is you have to be honest to yourself. What you cannot do. I can't overnight become an awesome accurate caster and spomber, and I never did it, or so rarely that not on that blue belt level. So don't even put yourself up to the competition. So I thought, just get my bait boat out. Are they banned? No. All right. Everyone looked at me like they are banned. When I back up that bait boat out, pushed it right under that willow, looked on the echo sounder, hard bottom, like 6 feet deep or 5, I don't know, 5, 6 feet, deep enough for a carp to creep under there. In Germany, I would put it right here, right? So it was like 10 feet from where I was sitting, like so Ollie Davis style, so to speak. Dropped the wig, half an hour later, I caught a fish. Then the guys who said they would stay to the next day left, scrambled all my stuff together, rushed round there, put a bucket in the swim.
Oh, yes. Bucket in swim.
Which blew my mind. So many funny things happened there. I found a mobile.
A telephone?
Yeah, in a swim. Right. And I wanted to bring it to the office. Yeah. And then a guy came towards me. And I saw him for it. He said, "Your phone." He said, "Yeah, put it there. That's my swim." He hadn't got a bucket, so he put his mobile there.
That's some bucket.
That is bluebell to me in a nutshell. I mean, I only know that fishery, right? So it's a lovely place,
incredible fish,
but so different.
Yeah, to Germany.
Ridiculous and scary also to a bit. Would I choose it if I could choose? No, of course not.
No.
Could I see myself getting addicted to that if I was over here? Probably yes, because it's like a new level in carp fishing.
Yeah,
not judging better or not. If you would hard press me, I was like, no, it's not better than what I'm used to. It's less free. It is so restricted. It is so much competition against other anglers. It is really small lakes in my,
of course,
book. But I could see myself getting addicted to it because it is like a new level, new parameters. Parameters getting brought into the game.
Of course.
Where I think I would enjoy it for a while to adjust to it, become good in that again.
Yeah.
Because I'm still learning in fishing, definitely. But the learning curve
is leveled
for
off.
a couple of years now, definitely. You're repeating what you know works. Yeah. And that would be a complete, I would have to adapt, otherwise I would just blank every week. Probably. Because, like I said, bait boat under the willow, half an hour later, I was away. Caught a carp. I thought, not that hard, like they said. The guy left. I thought, all right, I have to get in there because from the next day onwards, the wind would be blowing in that corner and I have to be there. Blank for the rest of the week.
Yeah, classic.
I should have just put my bait boat right back under the willow, and I have a feeling I would have caught one or two more.
Yeah.
But
there you go.
From there on, I didn't spomb or anything, but I put the tons of hemp out to the middle of the lake like everyone else did. And I got the same results as everyone else did. Because the whole week on Swan, not one fish was caught. I should have done what my instincts.
Get under the trees, boy.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's interesting watching a German angler from that environment come into a UK environment and new perceptions. But I think that's all understandable, as you said from the very start. Your upbringing shapes what is, if you like, the norm. Before you go, mate, I've got 10 quick fire questions. Ooh. Okay. You can pad these out if you want. They don't have to be that quick, but I've got to do them. It's customary, mate. One hook pattern that you choose above them all.
Chod hook.
A chod.
Yeah, can fish it on a stiff mono. Can fish it on a multi-rig. I could even attach a swivel if I really wanted to fish one of those Ronnie things.
Get on the Ronnies, mate.
No, it is the ultimate hook pattern. Like an outturned eye.
Straight point, beak point?
Straight.
Okay.
Offers you the most possibilities. Yeah, in a river, I would probably be on the downside, but if I would have to choose, I would just not fish rivers then.
I like that. Only fish in Germany for the rest of your days or never fish in Germany again?
Only fish in Germany.
Yeah, you got a lot of water, haven't you?
Yeah.
Three Nash lads you'd take on a social. I'm asking you to answer the Nash lads question. You've got to pick someone. Dan Yeomans might cry if you don't pick him.
Definitely. He is my first choice.
First choice. You've made his year.
Dan, definitely. The laughs and the banter are just unmatched.
He's funny, and he's funny.
We're big into NFTs now, just to say that, because that will make him giggle when I mention it on his podcast, if he ever hears it. But yeah, that will make him giggle.
This will be the only one he listens to.
We're crypto millionaires soon.
Well, I've heard about you at crypto. You're up there, aren't you? You're going to be the new Dan Blazarian, but the carp fishing version.
Next episode.
Yeah.
I will fly you in.
Yeah, wicked. That's on tape, mate.
Whisper right now. Probably Tommy.
Yeah, what boy.
Because I said this before. Don't know where, because I have such a short memory. I admire his angling.
Yeah.
Tommy. He's fishing so different than I, but this spombing and being accurate and stuff. I always admire that and try to pick up as much as I can. And then it gets really hard, because if it was 4, it would be easier.
4?
Yeah, if you would let me pick 4.
You can have 4 if you need 4.
Okay. Ollie.
Yeah.
Just him and I, that's something that I enjoy quite a lot.
Yeah.
And Alan, because I have to look at somebody just running around that lake all day.
He's entertainment, isn't he?
It is entertaining. And me sitting back in my chair and
good
relaxing. And then in the evening, when he burned his battery out, like, he usually settles down, and then you get a bit nice chat and banter with him.
Yeah, happy days, mate. Good selection. Bait, boat or drone? You got to pick one.
Drone.
Straight off.
It's the biggest edge there is.
You love it, don't you?
Judge me.
Some of your photographs are mega off it as well, mate. On
also, so I can justify it. I have to create content. Insta and then.
For the gram.
Yeah, not dropping 70 pounders anymore.
I do remember.
I photographed them now from the sky.
Drum and bass or country and western music?
Jesus Christ.
None of them? What's your genre of music then, Voosen?
Drum and bass, after a while, stresses me out.
Yeah, I can't deal with it, mate.
Country and western can be enjoyable, but also not solely. 80s.
80s?
Yeah, if I would have to pick one playlist for the rest of my day, it's what I listen to sitting in my kiddie seat in the back of my dad's car.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, fair play. Some dodgy 80s.
Chris Isaac, Level 42.
It's got to be some dodgy 80s nights around Essex, mate. You'll have to hit the town, mate.
Yeah.
Proper.
Love it.
German beer or German sausage?
Jesus Christ.
I think I might have been a few coffees in when I wrote these, mate.
I don't know where you was going with it, but I will give you the answer I think you hope for. German sausage.
Yeah, mate. You got to love a German market sausage if you're in England. That is the one at Christmas time. You can't beat it, mate.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You know I don't drink beer, so it was an easy question.
I didn't know you didn't drink beer.
Yeah. I bring... It is the funniest thing. Like Tommy usually does me the favor wherever we go on all these shows.
Yeah?
He orders for me because I drink cola beer.
Cola beer?
Which is... Yeah, that's the same reaction. Like we had guys refusing to do it.
What is that?
Cola mixed with beer.
Oh, Coca-Cola mixed with beer.
50-50.
What in the world?
It's called diesel.
Of misspent youth has gone on there. Interesting.
It's a how you call it, a shandy?
A shandy.
Just with, I mean, what is cola then other than brown lemonade?
Is it? Does it taste? I don't really drink any
Believe me, guys out there, if you want to treat yourself, half and half. The beer doesn't matter because the cola makes it taste good.
Animal. I love that. Full fat cola, not this zero stuff.
No, the good stuff.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Stuff that will
Treat
melt
yourself.
your inside. Get it down, yeah. Dream fishing trip or bucket list. What's on there, mate? Where would you go? What would you fish for?
One of them I don't want to name because I don't want anyone else to go there before me.
Okay, don't name that one. Tell me that after the camera's roll.
I would love to America. Yeah.
What'd
And then
carp?
explore Turkey and Greece for carp. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, fair play. Bread bomb or bolt machine? I can't even read. Bread bomb. You love a bread bomb, don't you?
Yep.
That video with your little dog, the old little pug, and you flick one out and catch good, and that's a quality video as well.
I love that. For example, that's what I meant. You still learn.
Yeah.
I did bread fishing as a kid, neglected it for nearly 20 years until I met Alan Blair.
Yeah.
And now, April, May is my favorite months of the year to catch them off top with bread.
On the bread.
Enjoy nothing more than it.
Yeah.
At the moment, I enjoy nothing more than catching them with bread. And I had some big ones.
Yeah. Yeah. 3 celebrities you'd take fishing.
Phew. Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan, good podcast.
I struggled with that one. Probably some hot chicks.
Some hot chicks. You caught Joe Rogan for general banter and sort of spirituality and awareness.
Definitely,
mate.
and
That's good.
interesting topics.
Very
Maybe
interesting.
maybe Jordan Peterson.
Yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
He could tell me something about discipline, I guess.
It's quite intellectual at the moment here, isn't it?
Yeah, I try to make myself look good. Yeah.
This is good. Yeah. Yeah. You got one more?
Somebody really funny. Andrew Schultz.
Andrew Schultz?
Yeah, American comedian.
Don't know.
Best
Andrew
comedian
Schultz.
on the planet to me.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going to Google Andrew Schultz.
Yeah. I can show you something, and if you tell me you didn't piss yourself and laughing.
Oh, this is
then,
good.
Yeah.
I like this. Last question. Night in with the missus or night out on the bank chasing a German 30 kilo?
I don't have a missus for 2 years now, so that would be nice.
No, you can pick your missus for the night.
No, that would include getting to know a nice girl again, and so I would pick that, I think.
Well, we've just that's an exclusive, mate. Marc Voosen is actually single, so ladies,
Get in my DMs.
Get in his DMs. Have you seen the man's hair? He's a chiseled Greek god with the hair of an equally chiseled Greek god. Get on him. Mark, you've been an absolute star, mate. Thank you so much for doing the podcast. I've thoroughly enjoyed the insight into German carp fishing, your fishing, and sort of your subsequent mega career. And yeah, I can't thank you enough. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. I'll be back soon. But until then, Mr. Voosen, I'm going to do some off-camera chatting with you because you're an absolute star. But thank you so much, mate.
Thank you for having me.